host, sabrinasalvati. Doobie-doobie-doo. I'm your host, sabrinasalvati. I'm your host, sabrinasalvati. I'm your host, sabrinasalvati. All right. Happy Tuesday, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to Sabby Sabs podcast. I'm your host, Sabrina Salvati. If you're new, I want to let you know that Sabby Sabs podcast is a part of Revolutionary Blackout Network. You can catch me there on Thursdays for the Sabby and JB show, and you can catch me here on Tuesday, Thursday, and Sunday. Ladies and gentlemen, we do not want to keep our guests waiting. So really quickly, I do want to go ahead and show you what we are discussing tonight by flashing that thumbnail in your face. Here we go, ladies and gentlemen. Tonight, we got a lot to discuss. Colonel Larry Wilkerson is here. You've seen him here before. We are discussing this split that is happening because of one person in particular, and that is Jeffrey Epstein. We're going to get into what is happening there with the MAGA movement and what is Donald Trump trying to do here. Later on in the show, Brian Berletic will be here to discuss the recent announcement from Donald Trump about the sanctions on Russia and also North Korea's involvement here. Why is North Korea? Sounds like they're reaching out to try to help Russia. We're going to get into all of that. We're also going to discuss, this is an interesting story. There was a New York City parking spot brawl. We're gonna get into all of that and why that's actually not uncommon, especially if you live in the city. We're also discussing, if you haven't heard by now, Andrew Cuomo returns. He is back. He has a new ad, and he is still in this race for New York City mayor. And last but not least, a very interesting story that was shared by Max Blumenthal. Believe it or not, apparently there was a segment of MAGA that is protesting against Benjamin Netanyahu. Stranger things have happened, but tonight's theme is games people play. It'll make sense when we get into the stories. Let's go ahead and bring in our special guest. Again, you've seen him here before. His name is Colonel Larry Wilkerson. He is a retired U.S. Army colonel and the former chief of staff to Colin Powell. Welcome back, Larry.
Good to be with you, Sabby.
So there's a lot going on right now. I can't even say it with a straight face. Crazy times that we are living in. But as I'm sure you know, Donald Trump and Pam Bondi are on this path of there are no Epstein files, apparently, after saying that they would reveal the Epstein files, and Pam Bondi also saying that the files are on her desk. There is now, it seems like, a split that is happening among Trump supporters, and you can see that reflected here. I want to bring in this short clip here from Piers Morgan's show, where he is correcting the guest here to his right about this MAGA split.
All right, so the point that I want to make here is this. I think that this idea that the MAGA base is fractured and there's all this stuff, again, it just seems to be something that's entirely about the internet.
It's not.
Really want to ask the question
no, Rob,
to everybody.
you're wrong about that.
Has there been...
You're wrong about that because a number of...
this question?
Rob, you're wrong. I'm going to tell you why you're wrong. When you've got people like Tucker Carlson and other very high-profile figures on the right, they're not just online people. They are big figures who are getting mainstream media coverage because of it. This is a big, genuine issue in the MAGA movement.
This is, and again, And again, it is. And to the point that I was going to make, Piers, yes, Tucker Carlson is major. Megyn Kelly is major. All of these people are major journalists and podcasters who command huge audiences, and a large part of their business is to get attention from said huge audiences. Has there been a single Trump administration cabinet member that has said, I'm stepping down because I don't like the handling of the Epstein files? Has there been a congressman or congresswoman, an elected official all across the country that has said that I'm reading the reports standing down because of the Epstein files? Has there been an elected that is saying that I have so thoroughly lost all of my confidence in Trump and the Trump administration over the mishandling of the Epstein files that I'm literally going to resign? Yes,
that's
the rumors
hyperbole,
about Bongino
Rob.
are out
Rob,
there.
hang on, Rob, hang on.
To blow over.
Rob, here's my answer to you. Here's my answer to you. Donald Trump on Truth Social, 12th of July. What's going on with my boys and in some cases gals? They're all going after Attorney General Pat Bondi, who's doing a fantastic job. We're one team on MAGA, and I don't like what's happening. And he goes on and on and on about it. Donald Trump thinks there's a split in MAGA.
Okay, Larry, let's go ahead and bring you in here. What is your take on this? Are you seeing that there is some type of divide among this that's offline, not just what you're seeing online?
Most affirmatively. As a matter of fact, I think Tucker Carlson has done what might just prove to be irreparable damage to Trump's relationship with his base. And that spans the gamut, because Tucker has of late, even considering his recent interview with the president of Iran, which I thought was really weak for the president, he's probing all the issues that, and Tucker's very, and we'll tell you this in a heartbeat, he's very close to Trump. His heart is with Trump. His political inclinations are with Trump, but he is not shying away from exposing the warts on Trump. And they are prominent right now. Most prominent of all is this case that will not go away. And you're hearing me predict here tonight, it won't go away ever until there's more exposure, which is going to be questionable. And that's the Epstein case. It's like the JFK assassination. I agree with those who are comparing the two, because what the Warren Commission really did was it asked America to eat a lie. And it fabricated that lie very zealously, very painstakingly. It brought lawyers in to help fabricate that lie. Anybody going over the transcripts today must smack their forehead and say, how could this have happened in this country? And yet it did. And we were asked to eat that. And everyone from Noam Chomsky and The Nation on the extreme left to the extreme right bought the Warren Commission's findings. And they were preposterous. They were an abject lie. That's exactly what this business of Epstein has been so far. It isn't going away. And it's going to keep cracking the Trump MAGA following as long as it doesn't go away. And it isn't going away.
And Tucker Carlson said this to an audience at the Turning Point conference recently to try to get them to understand that, no, this is not okay, that people have to be held accountable. And I don't even know what Donald Trump's team was thinking, telling people that they were going to release this information in the first place, and then to pedal back and say there are no files. Well, Ghislaine Maxwell is in prison, and Ghislaine Maxwell said that she had a book and a list. So it's just, it's very like this one. And I could see like Trump supporters maybe on a different issue, but this one has been, I think, the canary in the coal mine. And a lot of people were counting on this to happen. I want to show you what Ben Shapiro said. Now, not everybody is willing to push back on him in that way. Ben Shapiro is one of the influencers that is standing by Donald Trump. Listen to this.
Basically, there's two theories of this particular case. One, Pam Bondi overpromised and underdelivered, which seems to me the most plausible. Or two, there's an active cover-up that the Trump administration is engaging in of a child sex trafficking ring. And I think that if people want to make that accusation, they should just come out and say it. And if that's the case, if they want to make that accusation that President Trump and everybody who was elected to uncover this is actually now, they flipped 180, and now they're engaging in a full-scale cover-up of a child rape ring, then people should just have the balls to say it out loud and articulate it, as opposed to sort of softly peddling the possibility that it's like, just say it, because it seems to me when you articulate these two possibilities out loud, one of them is significantly more plausible than the other. Now, again, that does not relieve the responsibility on the administration to answer basic questions of fact publicly, and that's where I think the great screw-up is. Basically, there's
he seems to be willing to give the Trump administration the benefit of the doubt about this particular issue. And I think this is where the influencer problem comes in, right? Because obviously Ben Shapiro has an audience and he's going to tell them what I guess he thinks they want to hear for the most part. And this is why I also push back and I say, the influencers, you have to be held accountable. Now, some people are pushing back, like Candace Owens. I mean, she's not a part of Daily Wire anymore. She's calling this out. I wonder if she still was a part of Daily Wire, would she still call it out? I don't know, but she's calling this out. Obviously, Tucker Carlson has his own network. He's calling this out. And it's just, to me, it's troublesome, I think. Like, a lot of these people, when Biden was president, were screaming, release the Epstein files. And then you have someone in the White House who said that they would, and now he's trying to backtrack on that. And now people like Ben Shapiro are trying to make excuses for it.
What I want to ask is, what is Trump not backtracking on, including most seriously right now, the fact he was going to end the Ukraine war, and what he's doing is expanding it. But let's just look at Ben Shapiro for a minute. His favorite tactic is Bibi Netanyahu's favorite tactic, misdirection. Listen to what he said. Go back and listen to what he said about what the essence of this is. He's bullcrapping. That's not the essence of this. The essence is Mossad, CIA, and MI6 are running the freaking U.S. policy. They are integral to everything the empire is doing right now, and they are complicit in this, not only from the point of view that the CIA itself has put on notice and reprimanded 12 or 13 of its own operators for child pornography and other things. I suspect many more other things. But the CIA, MI6, and Mossad are deep in this because they were using it to gain influence on world leaders, to make sure that those world leaders stayed within the curtain that they were supposed to be behind, or the particular policy they were supposed to be supporting. This is much bigger than just child pornography, as bad as that is, or even worse with regard to children. It's much bigger than that, because that was the tool that these, reprehensible though it is, that these agencies use to gain influence with and to gain power over world leaders and others, and even our own people, Sabby, our own leaders throughout the structure. They're involved in it too. And the intelligence agencies are the orchestrators of this. People say, they ask me all the time, has the CIA really gone rogue? Has MI6 joined it? Has Mossad led the way? Are you kidding me? Where have you been for the last 30 years? Of course. Who's transferring weapons right now from other NATO countries to Ukraine? I guarantee you it's not official channels.
Yeah. And I for one, don't believe that Epstein was alone.
No.
And this is the part I think Professor Morandi mentioned this on George Galloway's show recently. He's like, there are other Epsteins. It's not like it was just this one guy.
That's true, but I think he is the focal point of what is wrong with and hasn't been challenged since the Church Committee about the CIA and its now underlings, Mossad and MI6. And people say, no, CIA is an underling to Mossad. Forget it, dude. We lead Israel. Israel doesn't lead us. That's a misconception. Yes, AIPAC has influence. Yes, they buy congressmen. Yes, they determine the results of elections. They do all sorts of heinous things that foreign countries shouldn't be allowed to do. But the United States tolerates it all because Israel is doing our wishes in the Levant. They are killing people on behalf of the empire.
Yep. That's what people really have to understand. Israel isn't doing anything that the U.S. government doesn't want them to do.
Not a bit.
This is why I tried to tell people under Biden's presidency as well, when they said, well, we're trying to get a ceasefire. Then, of course, they revealed later on after Trump was elected that they never asked them to stop like dropping the bombs because, yeah, again, like they're not doing anything that the U.S. government doesn't want them to do. And this is where the games come in, right? Because now Ro Khanna introduced an amendment to demand the release of the Epstein files. I want to show you guys this.
Mr. Speaker, I introduced today an amendment demanding the full release of the Epstein files. The Speaker's Rules Committee should demand a vote tomorrow of every member of Congress. Yes, we should release it, or no, we should not. This is a question of whose side are you on? Are you on the side of protecting the rich and the powerful who've put their thumb on the scales of government to suck out millions of dollars while working class Americans suffer? Or are you on the side of the people? The Attorney General said on her desk was the Epstein file. And now she's saying, no, nothing to see, don't release it. This is a question of trust. We need to release the Epstein files so we can restore government of the people, by the people, and for the people. And every member of Congress tomorrow should be forced to vote on this amendment. Mr. Speaker.
So Ro Khanna went ahead and moved forward with that. As you guys can imagine, the Republican Party voted against it and the Democratic Party voted for it. From what I understand, I think there was like one Republican that held out or something like that. But anyway, it did not move forward. This is where the games come in. That's why I say games that people play, because Ro Khanna is basically trying to say, all right, let's take advantage. Democrats, let us take advantage of this opportunity right now and make it look like, show people we're fighting for them, right? But Ro Khanna also knows that that's not going to pass. Also, Ro Khanna didn't offer this under the Biden administration. Why didn't he demand? I looked on Twitter today. Because you can search on X to see like history. I looked on Twitter, and Ro Khanna hasn't mentioned this at all. Hasn't mentioned until just recently. He hasn't mentioned Jeffrey Epstein at all. So why didn't you bring that forward during the Biden administration, Ro Khanna? So this is what I mean by I talk about the games that people play. He knew it wasn't going to pass.
I saw the same thing with Steny Hoyer and Nancy Pelosi when they fought us trying to get the U.S. out of the war in Yemen, supporting Saudi Arabia, fought us right up to the moment prior to the vote, and they realized both houses were going to pass the legislation, War Powers Resolution. So all of a sudden, Pelosi and Steny Hoyer became advocates for the bill. Why? Because they knew that Trump would veto it. And they were right. Both houses passed it and Trump vetoed it. So they got both sides of the argument. They got the support the Saudis, and they got the, oh, this is terrible, we shouldn't be supporting the Saudis. This is the games people play. You're absolutely right. In the case of Ro Khanna, though, he was a big advocate, by the way, with us for the War Powers Resolution bill. And I thank him for his work in that. But I will tell you this. You are not going to see, however genuine your complaint and your tirade was there, Ro, you're not going to see any more than you're going to ever see the full Kennedy release, the release of the Epstein files. You just aren't, because sources and methods, that's their, technical argument, intelligence agencies were involved, and they were deeply involved, and they are still involved, and they still have the information.
That's right. Just like with the Kennedy files, it was redacted, right? So they redacted things that mention Israel, etc. I had a guest that came on that talked about this. He wrote a book about that before those files were released. So they're going to hide the information that they don't want you to see. But speaking of intelligence, Whitney Webb, who we got to give flowers to, she wrote 2 books about this a couple years ago, warning people that Epstein was connected to Mossad. So I think she has been on maternity leave, it sounds like. Now she is back. So she's just coming back into all of this that is happening with Epstein. And she went on to say, I feel now is a good time to announce that I have been working on a series of articles over the past year that will provide a lot of new information and context on the Trump-Epstein relationship. And also there is very significant ties of Epstein to close friends of Trump, including at least one that has appointed to an important post in the current administration. Also, there are some revelations that will be quite troubling for Andrew Cuomo. Unlimited Hangout will begin publishing these articles over the next few months, included in the upcoming print magazine, Unlimited Hangout. So Whitney tried to warn people a long time ago how intelligence is involved in all of this. And I think in the beginning, some people were like, oh my gosh, this is conspiracy. She doesn't know what she's talking about or whatever. But Whitney's been on the show, and I'm not sure if you're familiar with her, Colonel Wilkerson.
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah. She's been on the show.
I hope we will get some revelations. I think they're inevitable. I don't know if they will be the real, deeply, profoundly disturbing ones, but on what decisions, particularly national security decisions, may have been influenced over the last few years by these intelligence agencies having this product on world leaders. That's the most interesting thing. How did they influence decision-making? And how did that decision-making then rebound to the discredit or credit of the people around them and of the country itself? And Israel is at the center of that. And anyone who could look at Ghislaine Maxwell and who her father was and not think that that state funeral for Robert Maxwell in Israel wasn't a tip of the hat of Israel to him and to Ghislaine and to Epstein and to the Mossad and everything else is just smoking some really cheap stuff. This is huge, and it's huge in the implications of national security, even more so than it is in the scurrilous and despicable implications of child rape and child abuse.
That's right. And this is one of the big things that Donald Trump said that he cared so much about was the children. And then I noticed something else. This gentleman here, lawyer David Schoen, he said, I was hired to lead Jeffrey Epstein's defense as his criminal lawyer 9 days before he died. He sought my advice for months before that. I can say authoritatively, unequivocally, and definitely that he had no information to hurt President Trump. I specifically asked him, okay, because you asked him. But this guy is interesting because this was also Trump's lawyer. People forget this. During like Trump's whole impeachment, he was a part of Donald Trump's impeachment defense. That's him right there. It's the same guy. So when I say all these people are connected, this is what I'm talking about. They're all connected. And I think that taking something like this down, like it's not just Epstein. You got to connect the banks as well, Larry.
Absolutely.
Like don't forget the Virgin Islands, JP Morgan.
The people that were paying Epstein a salary that was way beyond his talents and his position, and accoutrements there too, not just a salary. He was making quite a bit, and he was making it because he was doing a very vital and important function for the intelligence agencies of 3 countries.
That's right. And then another thing I was going to ask you about this as well. When we're talking about the split that apparently is happening, have you ever seen this before? Have you seen people get like this divided over a president that they supported? I mean, like publicly split like this.
It's happened before. I remember it happened pretty decidedly and deadly for H.W. Bush on another set of issues and in a different vein, national security vein in particular. It's what cost him the election, really. Israel ganged up on George H.W. Bush, even to the point of, I think there's evidence now that they might have even influenced H. Ross Perot to enter the race and run against H.W. Bush and steal some votes from him. And I know that they threw their money and weight to Bill Clinton to get H.W. unelected. And the reason for that was essentially what George H.W. Bush had made Israel do. And what he'd made them do was essentially enter the Oslo process. And they entered it kicking and screaming. And of course, they fouled their own bed in that process, and a 2-state solution didn't evolve from it. But that whole imbroglio really hurt H.W. Bush in a number of ways, including not getting elected again. And it put Bill Clinton in the White House. These are the kinds of things that go on. And I'm not insinuating that there was any Epstein information in there. I don't know. There could have been. But it was a situation where a president who was running at 90% all of a sudden drops down around 40 or 45%. And it's basically because his enemies have marshaled against him using intelligence and other things that they've gained through less than savory means. That could happen again with Trump. I don't know that it will, but I'll tell you, the thing that startled me most is not just Tucker. I've watched every one of Tucker's interviews, some of them 2 or 3 times, just to make sure I'm hearing what I'm hearing. But I've also listened to Marjorie Taylor Greene make a complete turn in the way she's dealing with this. And Marjorie Taylor Greene comes from Georgia, one of my home states. Georgia and South Carolina are my principal home states. And I've just marveled at her ignorance and her stupidity for so long. And then all of a sudden she starts speaking sense about war, sense about the war power, sense about Epstein, sense about other things that are troubling her clearly. And I'm asking myself, why has she shifted? Why has she changed? Because she's doing damage too. And I suspect there are going to be others who will follow suit. You'll never get some Luddite like Lindsey Graham to follow suit, but you are going to get other people who are going to start questioning what they've been doing for the past year or so, or even longer, with regard to MAGA and with regard to Trump. I hope so anyway, because it's becoming quite apparent that this is not only a bunch of clowns in charge of this country, that the people behind them manipulating the puppets in front of them are dangerous people, extremely dangerous people in some instances, and who actually want this World War III that we're trying to breed right now. That's what we're in, Sabby. We're in the opening stages of World War III. We've opened a theater in Central Europe. We're trying to open a clandestine one in Georgia, Romania, and Azerbaijan. We've opened a definitely hot one in Southwest Asia. We're trying to open one in the Baltic around territory the Russians really, really feel sensitive about. And I've recently learned we're trying to open one in the Arctic because we feel like Russia is intruding on the Arctic in ways they shouldn't be and inviting China to come along. And we say China doesn't even have a coast on the Arctic. But the number one economic power in the world certainly does have an interest in the Arctic. This is all of the warp and woof of what we're trying to do globally to arrest the deterioration of our empire. World War III is already on us. We're already engaged in it.
Yeah, I didn't know that's what affected George H.W. Bush's reelection, but now it all makes sense. Because that wasn't, people were shocked.
People are going to start writing on this. A few people have picked up the pieces and started talking about it, but historians will pick up on this, of course, way out there, but someone needs to start picking up on it even more so, because this is when the empire began to topple. This is when Bill Clinton began the expansion of NATO. Bill Clinton began the sale of weapons wholesalely to countries like Poland and so forth. And this is when we really reneged on all the promises that H.W. Bush made to Gorbachev, made to Shevardnadze, made to Helmut Kohl, made to Francois Mitterrand, made to all the European leaders about bringing Russia into Europe and treating them as an equal partner. We violated all of that. And it began with Bill Clinton and the election.
This all makes more sense now. Because for those who don't know, for those who may be younger, I don't know how old everyone is in the chat. According to George H.W. Bush's approval rating, there's no reason why he shouldn't have won re-election. So when Bill Clinton won, that was a shock. I was a kid, but I remember my parents being surprised by that. They were shocked. I know people who voted for Ross Perot too, by the way, that people, this wasn't, seemed like as long ago, wasn't that long ago. And now that all makes sense. because it just didn't. And then, then after that, of course, later on, after Bill Clinton, George W. Bush runs for president and he wins. And even under, and this is the thing, like people have asked me before, some of the younger peeps during the, when George W. Bush said, okay, we got to go to war. Saddam Hussein has weapons of mass destruction. People have asked like about the pushback. And from what I remember, at that time, like the majority of us did not know that was untrue. The majority of us didn't know. So I think the rise up that you guys have seen right after October 7th of people hitting the streets and protesting for Gaza, there were protests against the Iraq war. But I think what you have to remember is that we didn't have social media at that time. So just keep that in mind. And then I think that, it was a different environment at that point. But later on, they did admit that, it was built on a lie. But at that time, like the majority of Americans were not opposed to going to war with Iraq. And some people predicted this, and you'll have to let me know how you think about it, Larry. Some people predicted that they wanted to get George W. Bush in to go to war in the Middle East. What do you think about that?
Yes, I do. I think they did. And let me back up a little bit and elaborate on what you just started there. I walked into Powell's office in August of 1992 with a little one-sheet paper, and that little one-sheet paper was my assessment of who was going to win the election. And he looked at me and he said, "You're kidding. You think Bill Clinton's going to win?" I said, "I do. In fact, I think he is going to win, and he's going to win completely. Electoral college, popular vote, and everything." "Why do you think that?" And I said, "Read the rest of the paper, sir." And the rest of the paper, he hadn't gotten to the rest of the paper, which essentially said, this is what it's going to mean for the military. And that was my real reason for handing it to him. After all, I was a military assistant. The disaster that was going to accrue to the military if he were elected. And that disaster unfolded itself. It very, very rapidly it unfolded itself. And in a very inexperienced president who didn't have a clue what he was doing, and started out by telling Powell to make sure gays could serve openly in the military. Well, first thing that happened was Sam Nunn, then the most powerful man in the Senate, called Powell and said, "Over my dead body." So Bill Clinton then calls Powell and, mea culpa, please get me out of this. Please get me out of this. And we go into the don't ask, don't tell imbroglio. And that's what comes out of it, because that's the only thing we could come out to save the president's rear end with respect to Congress. All to say that as I watched that unfold, I realized we were dealing with a guy who hadn't a clue about what he was doing as president of the United States. And this was going to rebound and immeasurably to our discredit and to our disfavor, as well as the country's. And it began to unfold pretty rapidly that it was happening. Somalia happened, and we had a debacle in Somalia. Clinton handled it really badly. Les Aspin, his Secretary of Defense, handled it really badly. Powell was 3 days out of the chairmanship. Les Aspin fell on his sword over it, got the president. It was the president's fault, but the Secretary of Defense took the blame for it. Later, Aspin would suffer an early death because he was essentially fired by Clinton after that. All of this to say that we started on this road we're on right now at that moment. And that road is inexperienced presidents who don't know what they're doing, who have powerful men and women behind them who do know what they're doing. What they're doing is not conducive to the interests of the United States of America, but they're going to do it because they have inexperienced presidents, or even willing presidents, or even dumb presidents like Donald Trump through which to do it. We haven't fixed that problem since Bill Clinton.
They basically want someone, by they, I mean like the deep state, they basically want someone in the White House that is going to be pro-war, and the media too.
Barack Obama tried. I'll give him credit. He tried. When I met with him in the White House in the last year of his second administration, and he looked at me with John Kerry sitting right beside him and said, quote, "There's a bias in this town toward war," unquote. I almost fell off my chair. Because he told me in those words that he knew what was happening to him.
Interesting. And speaking of war, you mentioned Marjorie Taylor Greene. Here's another one. This is my comrade Kyle here. Kyle said, eventually you got to own that you got played, completely predictably so, but I can't fault people for having hope. MAGA got played if they expected any different. He's referring to Marjorie Taylor Greene. She said MAGA did not vote for more weapons to Ukraine. MAGA voted for no more U.S. involvement in foreign wars. But what was interesting, she also had tweeted about the Epstein files as well. But when it came time to vote, she voted with her party. She didn't vote in favor to release those files. And see, these are the dynamics that I talk about when I say the games that people play. At the end of the day, people usually side along with their party. What about the anti-war folks?
And what happens? What happens is the chairman of the Senate Select Committee on Intelligence and the House Committee on Intelligence run around, and they're the only people who know. They run around and they talk to other members, brief meetings, and say, you can't do that because you'll reveal the dirty laundry of the CIA, the Mossad, and MI6. You can't do that. And people get scared. They get scared because they're not read in. They're not on the select committees. And they quit and they don't vote, or they vote the way they're told to vote. That's how it works. I've watched it.
So basically that means that to that point, Larry, that means that even though you're a member of Congress, then it's like step one, step two, right? Like, I can't do this because I'm not in said political position. So I'm only city councilor, I'm only mayor. Then it's, well, I'm in Congress and we, write legislation and we hold the purse. But now it's, I'm in Congress, but I'm not on said committee. So I still don't really have any power, or I'm not a part of leadership. So I still don't have any power.
Exactly. It would be like, in a small example, it would be like a congressman running out and speaking to the mayor of Washington, D.C. and saying, if you implement that policy, things are really going to happen to you that are bad. And I can't tell you exactly what they are because they're classified, but they will happen to you. And then the mayor of Washington, D.C. reconsiders what she's going to do. I mean, that's a small example, but that's the kind of pressure and power that's wielded amongst people who are in the know against people who are not in the know. And people who are not in the know have to take the word of that specialist from the select committee because they do know. They know what the CIA is doing. They know what MI6 is doing. They know what Mossad is doing. Now, that may be a lie too, but the congressman or congresswoman can't accept that as, I'm going to go vote the other way anyway. I'm going to vote my conscience. Well, if you do, you're going to be damaging the country. That's the argument they use.
And that's why those people get pushed out.
Yep. And they can't vote their conscience.
Then they don't really represent us.
No, you're absolutely right. They think they are because they think they're listening to the committee chairman who know best. But in most cases, those people are twisting the intelligence for their own purposes as much as the intelligence agency is. I saw that with the Iraq War, too. I got caught in that with the Iraq War, the second Iraq War.
That's crazy. I do want to highlight what Dwayne said. Dwayne said there were millions, to correct myself, there were millions that came out to protest against the Iraq War. So correcting myself there.
When I was in London, I saw the biggest anti-war demonstration I've ever seen. And later I was told it was the largest on the face of the earth to that point. There were 2.5 million Londoners all around me. The bobbies couldn't even move their horses. I feared for their horses because the horses they couldn't move. They couldn't budge because there were so many people between the Thames and the Parliament buildings. Solid flesh, solid human flesh.
It's really interesting when we think about like the anti-war people, to the point that Marjorie Taylor Greene was making. What about the anti-war people that voted for Trump because he said that he was going to end these wars?
I think we're going to hear more from them. I think we're going to see more pushback against their members of Congress and against Trump in general. I don't think they're going to lie down and go quietly into that dark night. I think MAGA is sundering right now. I think it's falling apart right now.
That's exactly what I've been seeing. And I know some people said, oh, it's only online. And I'm like, I don't really know about that. Like, people like,
When I have people I know well from South Carolina, from Georgia, from Florida, from Texas, emailing me and saying, "What the hell's going on? I didn't vote for this." Then it's countrywide.
Another thing is happening too, Larry, where we'll get back to Tucker Carlson, for example, interviewing people that Western media would never interviewing the president of Iran, interviewing Vladimir Putin, giving people a different perspective or a different side of the story that they would never hear on corporate media. Do you think that that is also having an effect, that that's making people try to think twice about things, like maybe we don't need to get involved in these wars?
There are some people it probably does have influence on, those people who actually think for themselves. Others are so fixed, they just say, well, that's Putin, he's a liar. Or that's Pezeshkian, the president of Iran, he's got to be a liar. I thought he did it, by the way, a very poor job on that interview. I never would have been so forgiving as he was. I can't believe that he was that way. I'm told right now that in the streets of Tehran and elsewhere in Iran, because their communications are pretty decent too, they are really angry with him for being such a kowtowing president, apparently, to the president of the United States. I mean, he as much as forgave Trump for a surprise attack that murdered people who were on leave in their homes with their children, and murdered some of their children and family members too. He should have been very straightforward about that. He should have said something like, I'm not sure I ever want to deal with the U.S. president again, instead of being so forthcoming. The Iranian people are mad at him. They're mad at him.
I guess his thing was he had to present himself in a certain way because he was talking to us in the West.
And I think he is genuinely convinced that he can still maybe get the United States to diplomatically deal with him. And I think that is a grievous error on his part, because Netanyahu is the determinant here, not Trump. And Netanyahu is intending to go back to war with Iran.
Yes. Yes. And you mentioned Netanyahu, and another thing that's happening too. I know we always talk about Gaza, and we're talking about the American that was just killed in the West Bank. But there's something else that Israel has been working on. I know I mentioned this to you before, Larry, these tunnels that they want to create for people to get to Jerusalem, more so Palestinians. Like they want to, like, this is really bad, you guys, when you hear this, but basically like they don't want them to, I guess, walk above ground in Jerusalem. Like it's really sick when you think about it, but they want to create tunnels for them to pass through.
Yep. And it's as sick as the humanitarian aid points. I mean, I've been running a tab on how many people the Israeli Defense Forces and their cronies are killing at the sites where people have to come for food and water. It's 50 to 60 to 70 to 80. One day it was 125 per day. They're using those sites to kill people on a daily basis. They're using humanitarian aid to kill people.
Yeah, it's really bad. I've seen some of those videos on X where literally people are lining up to get the food and get the aid, and they're just shooting them as they come to get food. Now, this happened under Biden too, but you're seeing more of it happen now. And
it was
there's more videos.
Yeah, it was happen chance then. It just happened because they concentrated for a particular group and they were easier to kill. Now they're orchestrating it on a daily basis. This humanitarian assistance program run by a private company funded by Israel and the United States is the targeting device to kill people.
I also saw there are American contractors there too.
Yes. Yes. And I think there are actually some people that we've hired there to act like they're terrorists. So occasionally the IDF has excuses to kill people around the area, because then they can cite that these people were trying, they'll call them Hamas, that they were trying to do this or do that that was inimical to the IDF. What it is people we've hired to act as if they're terrorists outside Hamas who are mucking the situation up, so the IDF has the responsibility to take care of them. Yeah, they take care of them all right, like they take care of everybody else with a bullet.
That's crazy. Like that's absolutely insane.
This whole thing is crazy. It's the most unbelievable thing I've seen in my 80 years on this earth. What we are allowing to happen, indeed encouraging to happen, in places like Rafah, the West Bank, even now with Israel saying it's defending the Druze in Syria. And oh, by the way, did you know they've reoccupied Lebanon? There's no ceasefire in Lebanon. They've reoccupied Lebanon.
I don't think a lot of people realize like they're fighting multiple countries at like multiple areas at the same time. Like Lebanon.
Trump just gave a bunch of money to Jordan and to Egypt to bribe them a little bit further. A bunch of arms to Jordan. They have become vassals of the United States, even more so than Israel.
This is crazy. This is crazy. And it almost feels like they're drawing this, like they're trying to draw this out. Like this could have all been over. But it seems like, number one, ceasefire doesn't exist to Israel. So I keep seeing people make these posts that say, oh, they're working on a ceasefire deal. That doesn't mean anything to Israel. I
asked someone the other day, what is ceasefire in Hebrew? It must mean something like, okay, better chance to kill you. I mean, that's all I can figure. Ceasefire, it's not a concept in Israel. It's a concept only to mean I can kill better.
And the question some people have, even till this day, is if Kamala were president, would this be happening? And I go back to, well, I remember Kamala kept saying that she would not withhold weapons from Israel.
Yep.
So they would still be bombing them. And it appears to me that Israel is going to take what looks like most of Gaza, and Trump is behind this, agrees with all of this, and I guess push whoever is left into Rafah.
And then shoot them. That's probably
basically they're basically herding them like cattle so they can get them all in one secure spot. And it's just it's appalling.
Netanyahu said when he was in Washington, there's got to be somewhere that'll take these people. I mean, there's all kinds of open spaces in the world. There's got to be somewhere that'll take them.
And he also said that the people who want to stay can stay and those who want to leave can leave, which, again, as I told people, it's ethnic cleansing because the Palestinian people said they don't want to leave their home. So what do you mean the people who want to leave can leave?
It's unconscionable what's happening. And then you get a piece in the New York Times that tells about a finding by a Qatari energy company and ExxonMobil of methane in the Mediterranean, a new field. And in that banal piece, it says, oh, Israel will profit from this. I mean, there's no mention even of what's happening behind that discovery, what's happening in Gaza, what's happening in the West Bank. No mention of it whatsoever. It's just life is normal. And it's even more than normal. It's better than normal because we found methane for Israel. It's sickening.
That's right. And I just wonder what some of the other leaders would have said. Like, for example, if Colin Powell were still alive, how do you think he would feel about what's happening?
I don't think he would even be near the government. I think he would have left a long time ago. You know, people say he should have left over Iraq. And when I look back, I say he would have been better off reputation-wise and in his heart-wise had he left. But he wasn't the kind of guy who was going to abandon a president in the middle of a serious crisis. I mean, look at what he did when he was fired, essentially, in November after the election occurred in 2004. He was fired. This has not gotten out, probably never will get out because he did quite a bit himself to disabuse people of it. But I know his driver told me he got the telephone call and he was told he was fired. Pack his bags and leave. And he came back and told his executive assistant, Marjorie, can I get your typewriter out? She had a Selectric, Olympic Selectric, just for typing secretarial correspondence, you know, an old typewriter. Got it out. He sat down at her desk and he typed out his own resignation letter and sent it to the executive secretary over to the White House. He was furious. He went home, wouldn't come back to work. He was furious. They had fired him. And then he said, I don't want to leave yet. He'd told the president he'd only served one term anyway. I don't want to leave yet. I want to stay through the Iraqi elections. And that was the end of January. So that kind of was worked out. But just to say that was an example of his loyalty to the president, because he was responsible for those elections in many respects. And so he wanted to stay. But he was dismissed ignominiously. He was just more or less kicked out. People don't know that. They don't know that. Partly because, as I said, he tried to cover it up. He didn't want to have it look that way. He didn't want to have the president and the chief of staff at the White House look that way. But I was there. I was on the telephone. I know what happened.
One more question for you here, Larry. Katie Nick said, can you ask Colonel Wilkerson if he was in Vietnam in February 1970?
I was in Vietnam from March 1969 to March 1970. Yes.
Wow. Interesting. Interesting. Well, I'll have to bring you.
Is there a reason she asked that? Is there something else?
I have no idea. I have no idea. But I'll have to bring you back for the Vietnam series. We just started that to talk about that war, and we've been trying to make the connection from that to Gaza and other wars that we've had since then. Because I sincerely hope that it doesn't go the way, at least this country doesn't go the way of the point where we get back to the point where they say, well, we have to implement the draft, because younger people, for the most part, are not signing up to join the military. And I don't blame them. I don't blame them at all. I worry.
I worry too. I think the young people in this country would go to Canada or Mexico before they would enter to fight one of these stupid wars.
I agree. All right, Larry, thank you so much for your time. Where can people follow your work? What you're doing?
Probably the only place now. I'm getting old. The Eisenhower Media Network. You can just Google that and you can find their website.
Thank you so much, Larry.
Thank you for having me.
Bye.
Good luck.
Thank you.
May you continue to speak out.
Thank you. Thank you so much. All right, ladies and gentlemen, that was Colonel Larry Wilkerson. Again, the theme is games people play. Just want to remind everybody, if you haven't done so, smash the like. Brian will be here in just a couple of minutes. So we have quite a big show for you tonight. I do want to go ahead and give a shout out to everyone who is a Sabby patron. Thank you guys so much for your support. You're holding down the fort over here, ladies and gentlemen. If you are interested in being a Sabby patron, I have 5 categories and my computer screen is tilted. Sorry about that. Ultimate Sabinators. We also have a group called Sabsters. Yes, we do. Don't forget about Sabbies. Don't forget about those peeps as well. And we also have a group called Members. Thank you to all of you for your support. Really do appreciate you. You can see their names scrolling across the bottom of the screen there, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you so much. All right. Let's get to some of these comments before Brian joins. Shout out to Stephanie for becoming a new member. Give Stephanie a big whoop, whoop. Stephanie. Thank you, Raphael. My poll after answering your question, ain't you the prettiest lady on YouTube? LOL. Nice job, lady. Love your show. Thank you so much, Raphael. And thank you, Marvin. Please have Ryan Dawson, Epstein expert, anti-neocon, RPT, geopolitical analyst, great on Zionist U.S. Civil War. I'll have to look into that. And thank you, Roger. No third-party presidential candidate won electoral college votes since Wallace in 1968. There you go. That is true. Thank you so much. I believe Brian is here. Brian, whenever you're ready, if you can just give me a thumbs up and I'll go ahead and bring you on. We'll just wait for Brian, guys. Okay, yes, he is ready. All right, ladies and gentlemen, our next guest is Brian Berletic. He is a former U.S. Marine and he covers geopolitical news, focusing on Eurasia. Welcome back, Brian.
Thank you so much for having me back. I was actually enjoying the show before I joined it.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, so you heard Colonel Wilkerson.
Yes. Excellent.
All right.
Excellent conversation.
Yeah, he knows a lot of things that have gone down. And now this particular conversation with you, we are now pivoting to what's happening with Russia and Ukraine. So I know that I've been focusing on, for those of you watching, I've been focusing on Gaza and the Middle East a lot. There has been movement with the war in Russia and Ukraine, and not in a good way. I want to go ahead and bring in this clip here.
Breaking news from the White House in the last hour. President Trump announced the U.S. will send new weapons to Ukraine. At an Oval Office meeting with the NATO chief, Trump said that will include a Patriot missile defense system, which will be paid for by NATO, but manufactured in the United States. Now, President Trump said he's lost patience with Russian President Vladimir Putin, but is still giving him more time before facing new sanctions.
That was before he decided to make his announcement about the sanctions. And I want to bring you in here, Brian. Donald Trump, the so-called peace president, sending more weapons to Ukraine. What is happening?
Well, first, I want to refresh everyone's memory. It was President Trump and his administration that admitted that this conflict was a U.S. proxy war being waged against Russia through Ukraine. He accused the Biden and Obama administrations of starting it, which, of course, they helped preside over this. It was actually President Trump during his first administration that began sending weapons to Ukraine that precipitated this conflict. But it was him himself who said that this was a proxy war. It should never have started. It's a U.S. proxy war against Russia. And now he's angry with President Putin for not just accepting a ceasefire, which will almost certainly be used to simply rearm Ukraine, as was done during the two Minsk agreements and as was done in Syria, which the U.S. has now successfully toppled. So this is just President Trump doing what I warned people he would do before he even stepped foot into office. Before he even won the election, I warned people that if you listen to what he was saying carefully, he was not promising peace. He would say it out of one side of his mouth, sort of, but out of the other side of his mouth was a full commitment to continuity of agenda. I remember October, Newsweek talking about J.D. Vance, then just nominee for vice president. And he was saying, we shouldn't be sending weapons to Ukraine. And everyone said, wow, that's amazing. We're going to end the war in Ukraine. But then the rest of the sentence was, because we need those weapons to go to war with China. And then elsewhere, actually a month before that, Newsweek also reported that J.D. Vance was talking about a political settlement for the Ukraine conflict. But if you looked at the details of it, it was just freezing the conflict. And what is this actually? This is what all of the policy papers, including by think tanks connected to President Trump himself, the Marathon Initiative, Project 2025 by the Heritage Foundation, and the America First Policy Institute, they all laid out a policy of division of labor where they get Europe to take over the U.S. proxy war against Russia and Ukraine. They get Israel to play a more active role waging war directly against Iran on behalf of the U.S. there. So the U.S. could focus on containing China in the Asia-Pacific region. So there was this element of a division of labor, which the U.S. will use in Asia as well, the Philippines, Japan, South Korea. But then there's also the concept of strategic sequencing, also mentioned in these think tank papers. And that concept is the U.S. is not strong enough to fight all of these nations. It wants to encircle and contain at one time. So it wants to tangle them up in different conflicts, tie them down, and then defeat them one at a time in detail, defeat in detail, essentially. And all these policies are mainstream neocon policies that have spanned decades and decades, just copied and pasted into these Trump-specific think tanks, and then branded with MAGA and America First. So that's where we are today, a very predictable outcome. People warned that this would happen, that this is exactly what President Trump did during his first administration. He promised he was going to end all of the wars. Not only did he not end any of those wars that he inherited from the Obama administration, he attempted to escalate all of them. The conflict in Syria, And he even tried to provoke a war with Iran through the murder of Iranian General Qasem Soleimani in Iraq with a drone strike in Iraq. So an egregious act of war against two nations, not one, Iraq and Iran. So yes, that is where we are today. And unfortunately, it's just going to continue in this direction, escalate in this direction.
Right. So Donald Trump people have to remember, when people are running a campaign, they're running a campaign. They're going to tell you the things that you want to hear to get elected. So he knew at that moment. I will say one thing Trump is good at is reading the room. So he knew, or he used to be, not so much now with the Epstein thing, but he knew, like, reading the room, that people did not want these wars and people were speaking out against it. So it's like, oh, okay, yeah, I'll just do same thing I did last time and tell people I'm going to end these wars. We're going to end it on day one, he said, at least with Russia and Ukraine. But just ends up being like the other ones, right? He said this war would have never started with Russia and Ukraine if he were president, but Biden's not president anymore. It may have started under him, but it's continuing under Donald Trump.
Exactly. And I would say that Russia probably made its decision to go ahead with the special military operation in 2022 when the United States started arming Ukraine with war weapons. And that all took place during the first Trump administration. So even though it unfolded during the Biden administration, and President Biden surely was enthusiastic about pursuing this war, the primary provocation was under the first Trump administration. There is a continuity of agenda that flows through all of these administrations, from the Bush Jr. administration all the way up to this current administration throughout the 21st century. There's one single agenda. There are core policy papers that lay all of this out in excruciating detail. And if people just read that, they will see what is going to happen 5, 10, even 20 years from now. They will see all of this. I know I have been shouting about this since at least 2010. I've been trying to warn people about this. In regards to Iran, there's a core policy paper published in 2009. I've been talking about it ever since it was published. And it laid out verbatim exactly what has now transpired vis-a-vis Iran. The U.S. pretending that they were negotiating with Iran to create distance between themselves and their Israeli proxies. Israel carrying out the first strike. U.S. wading in. This was all verbatim spelled out in these policy papers 16 years ago. So yes, it is. It's just continuity of agenda. He just said that, just like Obama said he was going to stop all the Bush era wars. He did nothing of the sort. He knew he wasn't going to do anything of the sort. The people he picked for his cabinet were these people connected to this, if you want to call it a deep state, who represent these unelected corporate financier interests that determine U.S. policy and are the ones benefiting from it. And President Trump and his current administration is no exception to this rule.
This is okay. So this is really important for people to hear. What you're basically saying is that regardless of the administration that comes into the White House, when it comes to certain countries and foreign policy, doesn't matter, because what they're saying when they run a campaign, because the policy papers have already been written.
Absolutely. And I beg people to please go find these policy papers. They're publicly available. They're not secret. They weren't leaked to the public. They are published on the official websites of these think tanks. These people come together and they have conversations that they publish on their official YouTube channels. You can go to the Brookings Institution or CSIS, and you can listen to them talking several times a week about all of these things. And they're telling you what is going to happen, regardless of whatever the rhetoric the White House or Congress is trying to sell the American people at the time. As a matter of fact, that's what Washington's role is not to make policy. It's to sign off on it officially, and it's to sell it to the public together with the corporate media. Both of these organizations or institutions, if you want to call them that, they answer to these corporate financier interests. And I'm talking about the largest corporations in the collective West. If you go to, say, the Brookings Institution or CSIS or RAND, again, they have public lists of who donates to them. And it is just the largest corporations, everything from Pepsi and Coca-Cola to Raytheon, Lockheed, General Motors, all of these huge corporations. This is who is determining U.S. policy. They're not interested in what the American people think. They shape what the American people think.
And so that means, and a lot of these think tanks are owned by the billionaire class. So that there you go, guys. If you just follow the money, you'll see where this is actually coming from. What you just said there, Brian, I think more people need to hear. Like, I wish like they would invite you on CNN or MSNBC when they have these panels and they debate these issues. I wish they had you there so you can make that statement, because that's what they don't want people to hear. I bet you a lot of voters have no idea about those policy papers or that these decisions have already been made. And if more people knew that, then they would know not to fall for the line of BS that these candidates are, spewing when they're running for election.
Yeah, yes, and actually, if you look at CNN, Fox, doesn't matter whether it's supposedly liberal or conservative. If you look at who these so-called experts actually are, if you look, it'll say Brookings Institution, CSIS, Rand Corporation. A lot of them are just the people speaking to the corporate media are these people from these corporate-funded think tanks. So it's one single ecosystem the corporations control entirely. And if you start to notice it, you cannot then unnotice it. And I saw you put on the screen, someone asked where to find these documents. All you do is go to Google, type in "Which Path to Persia" PDF, and it'll direct you to the document itself. The Rand Corporation, Extending Russia from 2019, that's another one that laid out this entire proxy war against Russia, not just in Ukraine, but in places like Syria, in Georgia, elsewhere in Central Asia. All of these things that the US is now doing, this was all written out in detail in 2019. And you just type in the name of the policy paper and then PDF, and usually it'll be the first result that pops up. Heritage Foundation, Project 2025. They have the whole document. It's over 900 pages long. It's tedious to read through, but it tells you absolutely everything the Trump administration was going to do, and it was written in 2023. So before the elections, they wrote all of this out. They were going to force Europe to spend more on NATO. They were going to dump the Ukraine war on Europe. They were going to pivot to Iran and China. And now literally all of that verbatim is taking place before our very eyes, and everyone's acting surprised. People are wondering, do they have something on Trump? Did they force him to do this? Did he lose the battle to the deep state? No, he's a salesman for the deep state. MAGA is his brand.
It was already decided. It takes me back to that video. Remember the video of General Wesley Clark when he said that they said he needed to go to war. What was it? Seven countries?
7 nations. Yep. In 5 years.
Right.
That was the plan.
Right. So I hope more people understand that. Like, these people they're salesmen. Like, when people, this is why I keep saying I don't trust politicians, because again, like, no matter how nice they are or how nice they are before they decide to become a politician, at the end of the day, they're trying to sell a product. They're trying to sell, that campaign. And Donald Trump, to Brian's point, he already knew what was decided. And then I'll piggyback off of that as well. That means that Kamala Harris also already knew what was decided. Joe Biden already knew what was decided. This is why I say just replacing the person doesn't change the course.
Absolutely. And let's just say President Trump didn't win the election. All that would have happened was, instead of having this very brief, just a couple of months, barely, if even, where we were pretending we were going to try to stop the conflict, it would have just kept going. And now, where things stand, it's almost as if there was no election and President Biden is still in office, isn't it? I mean, if people really think about, filter out the rhetoric and the branding and the slogans and all of the things they try to get you to do to rationalize accepting that things haven't actually changed. It is just continuity of agenda.
And speaking of Ukraine, so Donald Trump did make an announcement about the Russia-Ukraine war, and he said Trump threatens Russia with new sanctions if no peace deal is reached with Ukraine in the next 50 days. So obviously we know there's not going to Obviously, we know that's probably not going to happen, is what I would say, that Russia is not going to say, okay, let's reach this peace agreement. We only got 50 days. Like, Vladimir Putin is not going to. I have a poll question for this. So, guys, make sure you answer the poll question. But I don't think that Vladimir Putin is going to be swayed by this at all. To me, this just seems like theater. But another question I have for you is, I thought we already had sanctions on Russia.
Yes. And I think Russia accepts that normalization with the West is impossible. They enjoyed it while they while they could, I think they were well aware that this was always going to happen. A lot of these, and then in the very small print of that article you just showed, they were talking about how the U.S. is sending weapons. Of course, they have been sending weapons all throughout the Trump administration, and now the authorizations under President Biden, those have run out. So very predictably, Trump is making an excuse to continue it, which is what I said he would do, and that is exactly what he is doing. And again, if this is a U.S. proxy war against Russia that should never have started in the first place, why is President Trump surprised that Russia will not accept a ceasefire? Everyone knows is going to be abused to just freeze the conflict and restart it later. If you want to actually truly end this conflict, and as Russia has constantly said, address the root issue. The root issue is this is a U.S. proxy war against Russia. U.S. generals are at the top of the chain of command of the Ukrainian armed forces. The United States Central Intelligence Agency runs all of Ukraine's intelligence agencies. So if you want to address the root cause of this conflict and truly end it, you need to remove those generals, pull the CIA out, stop sending weapons, and agree to a security architecture regarding Russia that is not a form of encirclement and containment, which is what U.S. policy is right now and has been since the end of the Cold War, as it is with Iran, as we can see with our own eyes, and as it is with China, which the Trump administration doesn't even pretend to make it a secret.
And then there's this question about North Korea. I'm not sure if everyone saw this announcement recently. North Korea pledges to unconditionally support Russia's war in Ukraine. Holy smokes, ladies and gentlemen. Yeah. And not kidding about this one. It says North Korea said it would support all measures taken by Russia in relation to tackling the root cause of the Ukrainian crises. So this is a big deal. North Korea is not a country that I would want to piss off. That's just my take there. But what do you make of this here, Brian? North Korea saying, like, listen, we're going to back and support Russia.
Well, the truth is the entire multipolar world is in the crosshairs, whether the leadership of these nations want to admit it or not, accept it or act on it or not. And I know a lot of countries that in the back of their mind, they know that the U.S. ultimately is even after them, even though they're not on an axis of evil list. They know that, but they don't want to take the steps to confront and agitate the West. But North Korea knows that it has been on this list. They have been targeted for U.S. regime change since forever. Before they acquired nuclear weapons, they were in the exact same position Iran is in right now. The U.S. was drawing up plans to invade and topple the government of North Korea. People don't know this, but there were the very same type of policy papers drawn up for North Korea that we can refer to now regarding Russia, Iran, and China. And the way they were able to buy time was to create a significant conventional military deterrent. That is, they had this huge amount of artillery, rockets, and missiles. That is what deterred the U.S. from attacking and trying to topple the North Korean government through military force, either directly or by proxy. And then they acquired nuclear weapons, realizing that's the only real surefire insurance against U.S. aggression. And now they're in a position where the U.S. really doesn't have any options to topple North Korea. And this is a place I think Iran wants to be eventually, and is the only rational path to take when you really think about it, considering what the U.S. has come to so many other nations around the globe. And now, because they have this huge conventional military capacity, including military-industrial production that created it, they can leverage this in support of Russia. And we already see the reports, admissions by the West that they produce millions of artillery shells every year. They have shipped millions. There's claims between 4 to 6 to even 12 million artillery shells sent to Russia. We don't know the exact figure. And they're expanding their military-industrial production. Now, it includes rockets, missiles, and over time it'll include many more types of weapon systems that they send to Russia. They've also sent thousands of troops. Now, we now know this. The West was claiming this. Everyone should be skeptical of Western claims, but now Russia and North Korea have confirmed this. Now we know that as well. Another thing that I don't think people realize or have considered is the role China plays in all of this. China does not want to openly, directly support Russia. They're playing a very complex geopolitical game here, but that doesn't mean that they're not supporting Russia. They're supporting Russia and Iran economically, and they do that very openly. They support both nations in the UN. They do that very openly. But in terms of material support, people say, why aren't they making artillery shells and sending them to Russia? In a way, they kind of are, because they are, at least, I mean, they're probably the most significant source of industrial input for North Korea. So it's a very clever way to support Russia, even other nations like Iran, militarily, without having to do it directly, and then attracting the ire of the US and its propaganda machine. They're able to do it through North Korea. It helps North Korea, it helps Russia, and ultimately it helps China, because they're the ultimate target of US encirclement and containment.
So I didn't know that about North Korea, that they were previously in the similar position as Iran. And that makes sense now as to why the US government is like, we don't want Iran to get the capability. They're like, oh, no, we don't want them to be at the table like North Korea is, because it's like, in a way, North Korea has nuclear weapons. So it's like you can't really overstep Kim Jong-un like that. Like you can't, I mean, so they don't want them to get in that type of position. So I was not aware of that. So I think that's important to know as well. The other aspect about this, you mentioned China. I do want to bring up these rare earth minerals that China has as well, which from what I understand, the weapon manufacturers kind of rely on some of those minerals that are in China in order to produce those weapons. So this is something I was thinking about. What if China one day just said, you know what? Yeah, we're not going to let you have access to our rare earth minerals anymore. That's another way to stop war.
Yes, and I'm seeing reports, and I'm looking into reports where it's claimed that China is looking at these rare earth minerals and their exports to Western industry, and they're making sure that it's going to civilian industry. It's not being used for dual uses or for military purposes, and that is the only condition that they're exporting these rare earths under. So we have to keep a very close eye on that and how that develops. Of course, it doesn't make any sense for China to export industrial inputs to nations that are building weapons specifically, literally pointed at China. I just wanted to touch on something you just said about North Korea. They acquired nuclear weapons, and the collective West is worried that Iran will be in the same position. Now we have to ask ourselves, how many nuclear weapons has North Korea used against another nation ever? And the answer is 0. And they know exactly that if Iran acquired nuclear weapons, they would never use them in a first strike capacity. They know this. They have admitted it in their policy papers over many, many years. So you're exactly right. They don't want Iran to obtain these weapons, not because they're worried that Iran is some sort of threat to them in terms of national security. It is a threat to their impunity in the region and around the world. That is why they're doing all of this. And that is not a justifiable reason to carry out war against another nation state, especially almost literally on the other side of the planet.
That's right. That's right. And so say that, again, I don't think Vladimir Putin is going to jump to Donald Trump's beck and call. So say that this war has not ended within 50 days. I feel like Trump is just playing a game here, and more sanctions and possibly, I guess, tariffs are implemented on Russia. Does that sink Russia's economy? Because Russia's economy seems to be strong despite the sanctions that we put on them before.
Well, this is the problem the U.S. faces. They have abused their global primacy that they inherited at the end of the Cold War. And the nations accordingly have begun creating an alternative system so that they can trade, do business, run their nations without the U.S. dictating to them what they can and cannot do within their own borders and between themselves and other nations. They have free will to deal with other nations without having to ask the U.S. for approval. And so they have created all of these systems. Collectively, we call this the multipolar world, or the multipolar world order. And because of its creation and many, many years, I mean, people, I think they take for granted now how all of this came to be. When BRICS was very early in its development, it was very hard to imagine this day where we are at right now, where the U.S. screams sanctions and people just kind of shrug their shoulders now. So I don't think the U.S. is going to be able to hurt Russia through sanctions. I think Russia, if I'm almost positive they knew this day was going to come, where they're just going to keep ramping up sanctions. China knows that they're going to do the exact same thing to them. They've been preparing for this for years. So I think they're prepared for it. I don't think they're going to capitulate to the U.S. If ever Russia agrees to some sort of ceasefire or anything of the sort, it would only be because they feel they can use that amount of time more effectively than the U.S. and its proxies can. That's the only reason I think they would agree to it. I think that is the actual reason they agreed to the Minsk agreements 1 and 2, because at that time they were not actually ready to launch a special military operation, something they knew they were inevitably going to be forced to do. But they weren't ready at that time. So they agreed to it because they wanted to make use of the time. And of course, they did make more effective use of that time, building up their military industrial base in ways the U.S. is still trying to catch up with.
Very good points there. And that brings me into the BRICS conversation. Rain says, how far are we from revolution? What will it look like? So one of the things that I've said to people is that revolution doesn't always have to be something that's violent, right? And you brought up BRICS, and I kind of see that as a pathway to some type of revolution, like a multipolar world. These countries, if more countries decide to join BRICS, or if their applications are accepted, because you can't just join, like you have to apply. And these countries collectively try to move away from the US dollar. Now, ultimately, that would not be beneficial to those of us that live in the United States, that we would hurt. But I kind of feel like, in a way, that is maybe what needs to happen for those other countries to be able to have some type of autonomy and not be under the control of the West, the policing that comes from the West.
I agree. I think multipolarism is a modern day global revolution against Western hegemony in all of its various forms. And we can see how it's taking shape. And I tell people, something like revolution, I think in many people's minds, it's a very Hollywood shaped idea or concept. They just imagine people spontaneously coming out of their homes and just overthrowing a government or something. It just doesn't work like that in reality. There has to be an equal or greater circle of special interests with money, with power, with influence, with the means to actually conduct any sort of revolution, whether it's a violent revolution or whether it's something more constructive like multipolarism. That's what you actually need. And if we're talking about the United States, what circle of interests exists in the United States that are not already entwined with Washington and Wall Street? And I'd say there really isn't any. There is no equal or greater power within the U.S. I don't think change is going to happen within the U.S. like that. I think it's going to happen through multipolarism if it's successful. And it will not deliberately isolate the U.S., but the U.S. will isolate itself through its own belligerence and its desire to rule over everybody rather than work together with them. And then those special interests in the U.S. will atrophy because they're no longer able to exploit the rest of the planet. They will begin turning in on their own population. I think in many ways that's already happening to the American public. And then it's not sustainable. So other interests will rise up. And if they're more constructive and want to be constructively engaged with the rest of the world, there will be a gradual transition. I don't think it's going to be like a Hollywood style revolution.
Right. Like, I think there needs to be a global impact. And I think that's what people should understand. And I want to show people this as well. Ben Norton shared this: the multipolar future the U.S. empire fears. Marco Rubio lamented that Brazil cut a trade deal with China. They're going to, from now on, do trade in their own currencies, get right around the dollar. And he's referring to this clip here.
Today, Brazil, in our hemisphere, largest country in the Western Hemisphere south of us, cut a trade deal with China. They're going to, from now on, do trade in their own currencies, get right around the dollar. They're creating a secondary economy in the world, totally independent of the United States. We won't have to talk about sanctions in 5 years because there'll be so many countries transacting in currencies other than the dollar. that we won't have the ability to sanction them.
小红书
Yeah. So that part right there, and they fear that, right? Because if those countries move away from the US dollar, then you can't say I'm going to put sanctions on Russia. But at the same time, like, you can't blame those countries from moving away from the US dollar because you've been policing them all these years.
Yes, the United States did this to themselves. They could have been a constructive force of global leadership if they wanted to. They would have had to accept other nations rising, even surpassing them, and they could have worked together with all of these nations, and the world could be probably 50, even 100 years ahead of where we are right now if it wasn't for their belligerence, their insistence on ruling over everyone rather than working together with them. And what is Marco Rubio admitting to in a roundabout way? That the U.S. presides over a global dictatorship, uses sanctions to make its demands, to announce its dictates, and now he's upset because they're not going to be able to do that anymore. And imagine if China was doing that, how loud the U.S. would scream, how loud people like Marco Rubio would scream. And yet he just so shamelessly says this, and he acts as if this is something that is unacceptable and needs to be reversed, when in reality, this is, like you say, this is of America's own making. They had no right, no entitlement to this power over the rest of the world in the first place, and it's high time that this power is taken from them. They should never have had it in the first place. They obviously abused it.
That's right. It's like, we don't know if the US dollar is going to be important in the future. Well, we really don't know. There is an episode, I don't know if you're familiar with the Twilight Zone, Brian, but there is a Twilight Zone episode where it's these guys and they're trying to steal gold from, like, they're in the desert somewhere, and they're like, let's put ourselves in these chambers and then we'll fast forward to the future with the gold bars, like, in our chambers. And they wake up in the future, and apparently at that point, the gold doesn't mean anything anymore. It's not worth anything, right? So we just don't know what's going to happen in the future. And then another thing too was that, I have friends that have moved abroad. Some of them live abroad because they were in the military. Some of them just moved abroad because they just wanted a different experience. And they're seeing the impact on the dollar right now as well. One of my friends posted on Facebook, he was like, yikes, the US dollar right now is not out here. And he's in, I think he's in Germany right now. So it just, I don't know. Like, I just think that, and I don't want people to think like this is not a anti-American opinion here. Like, I say these things and sometimes people are like, oh, you're against the United States. It's not even that. It's just that these countries should be able to have autonomy. And they should be able to govern the way that they want to govern without this interference from the West. And if the West doesn't want to stay out of their way and they feel the next step of doing that is to move away from the US dollar, you really can't fault them.
Exactly. And I reject this notion that it's anti-American to be against empire. Empire is anti-American if you really think about it, at least in concept, in principle. In practice, that's another matter entirely. I am not anti-American. I am an American. My family is in America. I was born and raised there. I'm an American no matter how long I live outside of the United States. I will always be an American. And I think America has the potential to be a very constructive power, again, together with the rest of the world. But it has no right to rule over the world. No nation does. And that's the whole concept behind multipolarism, a balance of power between nations, not one single nation ruling over all other nations. And so people should ask themselves, if another nation was doing this to the United States, if China was sending its military to North America, putting troops on the border, or even taking over an island off the coast of the United States, U.S. territory, by the way, under international law, how would Americans feel about that? And would Americans want to do something about it? And of course, the answer is yes. So why do we think that it's anti-American to point out that the U.S. is doing this to other countries, and other countries have a right to protect themselves against this aggression, encroachment, abuse, and exploitation, when Americans themselves would never tolerate this being done to them? And the irony is that a lot of the Americans that support this idea of American hegemony also like to identify as Christians. And one of the golden rules of Christianity is to treat others as you want to be treated. And is that what the United States is doing around the world? Most emphatically not.
Brian, I always tell people, if they get the opportunity to live outside of the US to take that opportunity if they get the opportunity, right? What has been your experience like doing that? Because you're in Thailand. What has that been like for you? I even have some family members that moved abroad and they said they would never come back.
Exactly. I would never come back to the United States, not as it is now. And, it's eye-opening. As a matter of fact, when I was in the United States, before I went abroad, I was brainwashed. I literally voted for Bush Jr. I supported American, in a sense, American hegemony around the world. I joined the U.S. Marine Corps. And when I was in Japan, I tell this story often, I saw Japanese people protesting outside the gates of the U.S. camp. And I said, why are they complaining? We're here to protect them. But the longer I stayed in Japan, I chose to go to Japan because I did have curiosity about the rest of the world. And the more I learned about Japan and I saw the US from the outside looking in, the more I realized how brainwashed I was, how completely wrong all of these things were that I thought I believed in. And of course, this awakening took place while I was in the military, and I refused to train. I was essentially kicked out, other than honorable discharge, because I refused to train. And then as soon as I got back to the US and separated from the military, I went to Thailand because this was one of the places I went to train while I was in the military. I had learned the language a little bit already during that period of time. And since then, yes, I've not only have I been in Asia looking from the outside in, I've watched Asia transform over the last 20 plus years from a region the US had exercised primacy over to a region that is now rising in its own right and together with China. And the difference is night and day, and it is a positive difference. It is a tangible difference. We're getting infrastructure here in Asia that the US would never build, even if it could, but it can't. And now China is building it and working with other nations to build it. And you can see everyone rising together. So a lot of people tell me, Brian, China's just going to be, if China rises and the US doesn't stop it, it's just going to be the next America. It'll be a global hegemon. But they are demonstrably creating a system that is entirely the opposite of what the US has done. And they have risen to superpower status already without firing a single shot or invading a single country this 21st century. People should think about that. The implications of that. America is a waning superpower, and all it does is invade other countries and fire shots at everyone everywhere. So there is a fundamental difference, and people need to open their eyes to it. And they have to follow the truth, no matter how uncomfortable it is. And if you're an American and you believe in American exceptionalism, the truth can be a very large and hard pill to swallow.
And another thing that people need to keep in mind is, again, like, if you have the opportunity, visit these countries for yourself so you can see what it's like, because we can be easily deceived in this country. I feel like we are the most propagandized people in the world. I'm not kidding, because I've lived overseas, and I just feel like it's easier for us to be fooled for whatever reason. I think the media has a lot to do with that, but just also that lack of experience. I want people to understand that, like, when you're, like, for example, people who live in Europe, they have high-speed rail. You can literally get on the train in France and take the train to, like, I don't know, Switzerland or something. Like you can go from country to country, just like that. It's when you have that type. We don't even have high-speed rail here. Okay, so it's like, I think that when you have that ability to just be able to go from country to country like that, and it's easily accessible, yeah, I think that does make things different for you. And from my experience, when I lived overseas, a lot of times people in these countries are minding their own business. They're not even focused on, like, the US, unless they actually want to try to get a visa to come here. But for the most part, they're not focused on what we're doing. They're focused on what's happening in their community and what's happening within their country. We're the ones, the United States government is the ones that tries to force our way into their country and policing these people. Like, we have over 800 military bases all over the world. So people have to imagine if China had 800 military bases surrounding the United States.
Yes. Well, to just think about it, China's building up its military entirely within its own borders, and Americans are still complaining about this, even though the United States has tens of thousands of troops closer to China and its shores than to America itself. So if you look at a globe, you have to cross the entire Pacific Ocean to reach these bases the U.S. is operating out of that are closer to China than they are to the U.S. Just think about that. If it was the other way around, it's just unbelievable. And I have not just stayed in Thailand. I've traveled around the rest of Asia. Obviously, I experienced Japan. I actually traveled all the way across China by rail. I lived in Singapore for a while. I traveled through Malaysia several times. And you have to go to, especially China, you have to go there and see it for yourself to understand not just the scale of everything that's happening in China, the scale of the lies people are being told in the United States about it and its rise. And I even see people in the comment section talking about China's rising by making bad deals. I'm in a country that makes deals with China. And I can tell you, Thailand is many times better off now for making those deals than when the US was the primary power influencing this region. You can see the difference. You can talk to people who have visited Thailand early 21st century and now today. It is night and day difference. If you cannot get out and travel, here's another suggestion. Go to YouTube and just type in 4K walk. That's the resolution. It's a high resolution walk, no commentary, and just type in any random city in China or just China in general. You will find unedited single take videos of people walking for like an hour, sometimes up to 2 or 3 hours walking through China or driving across China, and like a 10-hour video of just driving across China. And look and see for yourself and ask yourself, is that what you pictured based on the lies you're being told by the US media? Is that what you pictured? And if not, why? Why are these two images different? The one you imagined and the one you're actually seeing. So at this point, there's no excuse for ignorance. That's the last thing I was going to say.
Yeah, and I think start asking yourself these questions as well. Like, why is it that the U.S. doesn't want you to travel to some of these countries too, right? Like we have people, independent journalists that have traveled to Russia and then come back to the States and they're detained or, trying to put fear into people so that you won't go there, et cetera. What are they afraid that you're going to see? Why don't they want you to go to Iran and Russia and all these and China? Like, what are they afraid of? There's a lot of innovation that happens in China, by the way. Especially for those who are interested in tech and technology. And I think a big part of this is that the United States government, or the United States as a whole, this empire is crumbling. And no empire lasts forever. And you can look at the history of Rome and read about what happened to Rome to see that for yourself. And I think what the US has been doing is that they have been trying to find a way to maintain that seat at the top so that the empire doesn't fall, by basically overthrowing governments in other countries and controlling other countries.
That's exactly right. Look at the percentage of the global population the U.S. as a whole represents. And then just think about the fact that the vast majority of American people aren't on board or benefiting from U.S. hegemony. And then look at the whole rest of the world. And then, it just doesn't make sense why 4 or 5% of the global population presumes dominion over the other 95, 96%. It doesn't make any sense. And you're correct. The only way for such a tiny minority of the global population to rule over everyone else is to divide and destroy everything else. And that is all U.S. foreign policy has done. So people always talk about what a positive force the U.S. is around the globe. Look at everywhere the U.S. actually is around the globe. Europe, war. Middle East, war. Asia Pacific, brewing war. So everywhere the U.S. goes is war. It is a warmongering nation, and this is what it does around the globe. People complaining about people flooding in over the southern U.S. border. What are they fleeing? They're fleeing the instability the U.S. has propagated across all of Latin America for over a century. Just look at the history. It's not even like secret or conspiracy theory. There are things you can go to the U.S. State Department's Office of the Historian and read all about. They are fleeing U.S. destabilization, U.S. division and destruction, economic or even sometimes literal. And that's That is what people are fleeing. That's why they are coming. And you're complaining about these people fleeing, but you're not asking yourself why they're fleeing and what role the U.S. had in all of this. And so it's just ignorance is a trap. That is the worst enemy of America and its best interest, is this ignorance. That is what American people need to fight against. Not Mexicans, not people from Latin America, not China, not Russia, not Iranians. It is ignorance, and it's ignorance that's deliberately imposed on them by the U.S. media, the U.S. government, and the special interests that control both.
And those countries in Latin America weren't always like that either.
Exactly.
Venezuela wasn't always like that. Like, people have to, again, look back at the history and then you'll see. So I think travel is fun if you can do it. Brian, thank you so much for your time. Can you tell us what else do you have coming up?
Well, I just do weekly videos. You can find it on the New Atlas. Just go to YouTube, type in the New Atlas, and then in the video description of each video, you can find all the other places to find and follow my work. X, Telegram, and Rumble are where I post all of my videos. And thank you so much for having me on. It's always an honor and a pleasure.
Thank you so much. Bye.
Bye.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, that was Brian Berletic. Check him out if you have time. And we are moving on, ladies and gentlemen. We have a couple of more news stories to cover. Again, the theme tonight, ladies and gentlemen, is games people play. And we will get to those stories as well. First and foremost, if you haven't done so, smash that like button. If you're new, don't forget to like, sub, and share like a Care Bear. And we're going to go to the comments here as we get ready for the next part. Thank you so much. Thank you, Sparky. The Trump show is the same as the Biden show, but with different actors. Thank you, Isabel. Beautiful shirt, Sabby. Looks like from Mexico. Oh, thank you. I got it from Temu, so I don't know. Stephanie, thank you for shouting this out. The Hague group meeting today and tomorrow are debating on a protective military force, and they deserve our support for real. Yes. I will be hopefully covering that on Thursday, because I knew the meeting was coming up. Daniel, who was here, Kovalik, I hope I pronounced Dan's name right. He went to that. That's what he was going to. Madislav says, Sabby, your blouse looks Slavic. Okay, Mexico and Slavic. I don't know. I got it from Temu. Thank you, Sparky. BRICS has no goal to quit using the dollar. BRICS enables an alternative financial network to protect countries from U.S. sanctions. If the U.S. plays it cool, they probably won't. The dollar's okay. And thank you for this one as well. But Sabby, why did all these countries locate themselves on natural resources which belong to the U.S.? The sarcasm there. Thank you, James. It's dangerous to be an enemy of the U.S., but it's deadly to be a friend. Kissinger quote, I think. Oof. And thank you, William. USA is acting as evil tyrants, bombing, taking over the country, supporting genocide is due to government morals, come from Talmud, not Christianity. Thank you so much for that. Okay. Quick announcement, and then we're going to move on to our next stories, ladies and gents. Quick announcement. The Boston Mutual Aid chapter, guys know my mutual aid group, we are doing our back-to-school donation, our annual back-to-school donation for the kids. We did this last year as well. It's that time of year again. We are fundraising for this, and I know some of you are like, I know she ain't asking for more fundraising money. I know, guys. This will be it for a while. Like, this and the documentary will be it for a while, but this is something we do every year. Back to school donation. It's on August 16th. So here's the quote here. Boston Mutual Aid chapter is hosting our annual back to school donation event at Codman Square Library in Dorchester on August 16th at 12 p.m. We will donate school supplies, host games for students, and provide lunch. Please help donate if you can. Our goal is $2,000 At least that's the same goal we had last year, and that worked out really well. So what we are trying to do is to get those school supplies to the kids. Last year, we had book bags, and what we do is we stuff the book bags with the school supplies. We also have games for the kids to play and something for their parents as well, and then we'll have food for them at the event as well. So if you can help out, we'll put that link to that there in the chat. Thank you guys so much. Eric, we can go to part 2 of Type VNC. And we're going to move on to the stories. Oh, no, part 2. Sorry, we're already here. Oh, I think we're already ready. Okay. I don't know what just happened. I lost the link. I'm sorry. I think I X'd something. Oh, here we go. Eric's probably like, what in the world? Okay. The Cuomo thing. We're going to go to Andrew Cuomo because this is crazy. This guy is insane. Okay. All right, ladies and gentlemen, let's get to the next story. Again, the theme is games people play. Andrew Cuomo was playing a lot of games, and he is finding a way to stay in this New York City mayor race. Believe it or not, yes, he is still in the race. He is running as an independent. So because he lost in that Democrat primary, he said, okay, let me go with option 2, and I'm going to run as an independent. That way I can still be on the ballot for the general election. Again, corrupt Andrew Cuomo, who killed all those people in that nursing home and sexually harassed all those women and then said it was because he was Italian. That guy and his ego is still trying to make New York City mayor a thing. Listen to this. Shout out to Case Study QB for this one, bud.
Andrew Cuomo may have lost the Democratic primary for New York City Mayor to Zoran Mandani, but he's not giving up yet. Pix 11 is your local election headquarters, and we've spoken to sources close to the Cuomo campaign. I spoke to them many times yesterday, who tell me an announcement is coming this week that Andrew Cuomo is going to mount an actual independent campaign. We always knew he was going to be on the ballot, but was he going to mount a campaign? That announcement expected later this week. Democratic strategist Trip Yang here with more to break down what this means for the upcoming race and for the Democratic Party. So Trip, good to see you.
Good morning.
So this was an interesting turn of events over the weekend, right? Now, we always knew Andrew Cuomo was going to be on the ballot because he told me I'm going to be on the ballot in November. But after what happened on primary night, he wasn't sure he was going to actually mount a campaign. But there's a caveat with this, and that's this September poll thing. You kind of lay that out and what it all means.
So it's a little bit hypocritical here for Andrew Cuomo because 12 years ago, in September 2013, when Bill de Blasio won the Democratic nomination, then Governor Cuomo actually presided over a press conference on the steps of City Hall, encouraging the state Democratic Party to corral and unite behind the Democratic nominee. So for Andrew Cuomo, 12 years later, to run as an independent and to seemingly actively campaign fundraise for this third-party independent challenge against Democratic nominee Zoran Mandani, it's a little bit, well, the height of hypocrisy, once again, for Andrew Cuomo, given his past.
So here's the thing, Trip. He's saying, though, that he would like to, or what we're being told of what this announcement is going to be is, yes, I'm going to run, but in September, there should be a poll. This is what Governor Patterson said last week, former Governor Patterson. There should be this poll in September. Whoever is the front runner among the 3 independents and Curtis Sliwa, that person should go up against Zoran Mandani. Everybody else should drop out, and that includes himself if he's not the person that they chose.
It sounds
So listen to that part there. So they're calling for a poll in September, which actually isn't far away. If you guys can believe it, we're almost close to fall. Isn't that crazy? I guess September is not really fall, but you know what I'm talking about. We are getting closer to that point already. And if the poll in September shows that he's obviously not in the lead, he has no chance of trying to beat Zoran Mandani, then he will drop out, or whoever that is, whether that's him or Eric Adams, one of them should drop out. Eric Adams right now is polling at 11%, and he's the incumbent. Also, another corrupt politician. Like, you have 2 corrupt politicians and a dog catcher guy that is running against Zoran Mandani. And Zoran Mandani isn't perfect either. I would prefer to have somebody outside of the 2-party system. I would have preferred to have like someone who's running third party, et cetera, or an independent who's not corrupt and corporate like Andrew Cuomo and Eric Adams are. But that's not the case with this particular election. New York makes it very difficult for third parties to get on the ballot. And you know who that is due to? Andrew Cuomo. Andrew Cuomo is the one who made it difficult for third parties to be able to get on the ballot in New York. He made it more difficult for them. So think about that as well, right? So those are your choices if you live in New York. Like it's all over the place. Now, this is not to say that Mandani doesn't have his flaws, which one of them that was just recently announced, we're going to talk about as well, just to give you guys an idea that I warned you that if he won, he would probably govern a little bit more moderate than the way that he is running. And something is already kind of leaning that way, which I'll show you. But this is what people have to choose between. Andrew Cuomo, the nursing home death man and sexual harasser, but it's okay because apparently he's Italian. You have Eric Adams, who was indicted, got pardoned by Donald Trump, but Eric Adams apparently misused campaign funds. You have the dog catcher guy, and you have Zoran. Let's continue on.
Sounds good in theory. However, one, Mandani is leading in the polls in the general election. Two, most registered voters in New York City are registered Democratic voters, and most Democrats automatically support the Democratic nominee. And three, crucially, while this plan amongst these anti-Mandani forces sounds good on paper, in reality, it's hard to find a set of three more stubborn people in New York than Andrew Cuomo, Eric Adams, and Curtis Sliwa. So I don't know if it'll actually happen in reality.
And they're also
And one thing I want to bring up as well is that the fact that Eric Adams is polling at 11% and he's the incumbent makes it very clear that New Yorkers are apparently not happy with the job that he did as mayor. There were a lot of complaints from people. We covered it on the show about Eric Adams' performance as mayor of New York City. One of them being he increased the rent. And this is a big no-no, right? So when Zoran runs on, hey, we're going to do like a rent freeze. We're going to freeze these rents, which you can do and which has been done before. When he runs on free public buses or whatever, again, I want to remind you, Baltimore, my original hometown, Baltimore, Maryland, has a free bus called the Charm City Trolley, something like that. That is free, that runs between certain parts of the city. So it's not that these things can't be done. These things can be done. Now, people bring up the questions of, well, is it going to be paid by the taxpayers, et cetera? Well, if you had a free bus, that would be something that would be funded by the state. That shouldn't come out of taxpayer dollars. So I want to be very clear about that, because I see people misinterpreting this to make it seem like, oh, you guys are going to have to pay for all these things, when some of these policies are things that would be paid for by the city or the state. But Andrew Cuomo just won't go away. I don't know. He's like herpes. He keeps coming back. And so he's back again. And he has this ad called In It to Win It. I don't know who told him this was great. Watch this.
Hello, I'm Andrew Cuomo. And unless you've been living under a rock, you probably know that the Democratic primary did not go the way I had hoped. To the 440,000 New Yorkers who voted for me, a sincere thank you. Thank you for believing in me, in my agenda, and in my experience. And I am truly sorry that I let you down. But as my grandfather used to say, when you get knocked down, learn the lesson and pick yourself back up and get in the game. And that is what I'm going to do. The fight to save our city isn't over. Only 13% of New Yorkers voted in the June primary. The general election is in November, and I am in it to win it.
Let me just pause here for a second, okay? Because this just looks so fake to me. It just looks so fake. The way he's just walking around like, hey, let me shake this person's hand. Let me shake that person's hand, right? So obviously, again, he's being filmed. But what I want to say here, it just does not look natural. It does not seem like something that Andrew Cuomo would just naturally do in his every day-to-day life. And I really do feel like this is an ego thing for him. I think that Andrew Cuomo feels that because his father was mayor of New York City, that this is kind of owed to him. I'm like, dude, you were governor of the state. You screwed things up when you were governor of the state. Maybe you should just take a hiatus away from politics at this point in time. Also, at no point during this ad do I get the impression that Andrew Cuomo actually wants to be mayor. I feel like this is just something he just picked up as like a hobby or something. It's like, I don't know. It's like you go to a friend and you say, hey, after work, you want to go shoot some ball with me? After work, you want to go go to the arcade or something like that. And your friend is like, yeah, okay, yeah, we can go ahead and we'll just go ahead and do that too. But it's not like they really are passionate about doing it. They're just like, okay, well, I don't want to be mean and tell you no, and I enjoy your company. So yeah, I ain't got nothing else going on. I'll go ahead and do that too. That's what this kind of seems like to me. It seems like to me, Andrew Cuomo just doesn't have anything else going on right now in his life. And so he's just kind of like, yeah, I'll just go ahead and do that too. That's the impression that I get. I do not get the impression that he is passionate about this at all. Hey, I'm Andrew Cuomo. My father said when you get knocked down, you get yourself back up.
My opponent, Mr. Mandani, offers slick slogans, but no real solutions. We need a city with lower rent, safer streets, where buying your first home is once again possible, where childcare won't bankrupt you. That's the New York City we know.
Guys, seriously. So I guess he's trying to kind of do what Zoran Mandani has done, like, you know, the man on the street videos. That was something that Zoran was doing early on when he announced that he was running for NYC mayor before he had a lot of attention. And I guess he's trying to do that now too. I saw the same thing, that video with Eric Adams of him ironing his shirt, get ready with me. And it just felt so cringe. You know, it's not their everyday thing. So it's just kind of like, I don't know, you know, it's just very weird to me. Let me picture a woman. Let me picture a child to talk about childcare. Then he says people be able to buy homes in New York City. Who can buy a home in New York City that isn't a multimillionaire or a billionaire? What are you talking about? Overreaching. Same thing here in Boston. Who can buy a home here who isn't multimillionaire or a billionaire, at least in the city? I'm not talking about outside the city, in the city. So come on, man.
That's the one that is still possible. You haven't given up on it, and you deserve a mayor with the experience and ideas to make it happen again, and the guts to take on anyone who stands in the way. Every day I'm going to be hitting the streets, meeting you where you are, to hear the good and the bad, problems and solutions. Because for the next few months, it's my responsibility to earn your vote.
So he's just now deciding to go out on the street to find out what the problems are. You didn't do that before you decided to run for mayor?
So let's do this. I'll see you out there.
We won't see you. So that's the... Andre said, no charisma Cuomo. Yeah, it's just, I don't know. You can tell it's more like scripted. It doesn't feel natural. And also, I want to show you something. The dog ain't feeling it, guys. Cuomo engaged with a human dog cameraman at the ready, said, source said this was shot in UES this morning. Watch the little dog, which is a cute dog. Cute little doggy. Watch this. He's gone.
Cuomo.
Go. The dog wants to go.
Cuomo.
The dog is ready to go. I don't think the dog is feeling it, right? So, yeah, I mean, you know, it's a shoot. It's, you know, I'm running for mayor, yada, yada, all that jazz. But it's funny because he's getting ratioed with this very same ad. Eric shared this, one of the craziest ratios I've ever seen. So check this out. His post where he says in it to win it, it has 585 likes, 1.2K comments. Again, this is the former governor here. The former governor. And Zoran Mandani, actually, I think this was genius. He commented here and he said, contribute nycvotes.org. So he put his link under Andrew Cuomo's post, and Zoran Mandani's post here received 20,000 likes. And Andrew Cuomo's post received 585. Like, you can't make this up. It's hilarious. Hilarious. But again, ego, right? So the games that people play, Andrew Cuomo knows that he probably should just sit this out. Probably should just sit it out. But ego won't let him do that. And then something else is weird that's really happening. There was a group of protesters that were protesting against Zoran. It's very weird. You guys got to see this. Shout out to Aaliyah. NYC, anti-Zoran Mandani protesters sang the national anthem outside of City Hall. Group gathered to protest against Mandani under the flyer, "No to Communism" at NYC City Hall. Check this out. Protesters gathered on the steps chanting "No Sharia law, no Mandani," organized under the banner "New Yorkers say no to communism." The demonstration featured American, Israeli, and LGBTQ flags and Trump banners. Check this out, guys. I kid you not.
But so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleam, whose bright stars through the perilous fight, for the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streamed, and the rockets' red glare.
So the guy right here on the right, you know he's on camera, right? Watch his facial expression. The guy right here on the right with the curly hair, this guy, let me tell you, this guy is like, I know I'm on camera. He is performing for the camera to the T, ladies and gentlemen. Maybe he's a theater major. I don't know, but he is there for it.
The bombs bursting in air, they proved through the night that our flag was.
What is he going to say? What?
It's red flag, the bombs bursting in air. They proved through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say does that star-spangled banner yet wave for the land of the free and the home of the brave.
What in the world? What's that? Be Easy said American Idol. Like, it's like, I don't know. It's funny. He's not even a freaking communist. Americans need to learn the definitions of these things. But that being said, this is why I told you guys, I think if Mandani does win, I don't think he's going to be able to do, I would say, most of these policies that he has outlined on his platform, but also because I think he'll govern more in a moderate way. And this is one of the reasons why. This came out recently. Mandani appoints top DNC and Obama advisor in bid to secure Democratic Party establishment support. So once again, you see another Democratic Socialist candidate who he's not even in office yet. We saw this with the squad after they got in, but he's already showing you ahead of time. He's trying to get that moderate support. So he's pulling in people that were part of Obama's team. Now that is a problem. That right there lets you know, at least you're seeing it early. I say it this way, at least you're seeing it early. Like, right? So he's showing you what he's trying to do here. Let's just dive in so you can see who was added. So Mandani has announced major additions to his campaign team, including former DNC political director Jeffrey Lerner as communications director and Deandra Khan, a top official from Service Employees International Union, Local 32BJ, to the campaign's political team. It goes on to say here, check this out. New York Times published Wednesday portrayed Mandani's expanded campaign team as a major step towards securing support within the Democratic Party as he prepares to face incumbent Mayor Adams and Governor Andrew Cuomo, both running as independents. Lerner served in the Obama administration from 2009 to 2011 as White House Southern political director before moving to the DNC to lead strategy for Obama's 2012 re-election campaign. Here's something else about this dude, okay? Lerner was also the communications director for Andrew Cuomo when Cuomo was New York State Attorney General under Governors Eliot Spitzer and David Paterson. He has occupied top positions at major public relations firms, Actum LLC and Dan Clores Communications, and served as a senior advisor to California Senator LaFonza Butler from 2023 to 2024. This is concerning because, see, what I was telling you guys before is that instead of taking over the Democratic Party, what ends up happening is a lot of these DSA candidates that do win, they end up capitulating to Democrat leadership so that they don't lose their spot. They learn how to play the game. So this is what I mean when I say the games that people play. The difference here is that he's showing you ahead of time. He's showing you now. He didn't wait until he got in and said, hey, I changed my mind. I'm going to do this. Like, he's showing you now that he is trying to get some of that moderate support. And so that's why he's bringing in a Obama advisor. And this is why I say, you know, I understand people supporting him and voting for him. Your choices are Andrew Cuomo and Eric Adams. They're both shit. Like, just to be honest with you, and they're both corrupt. There is no third party candidate here. The two independents are corporate and corrupt. So I do understand that. But what I don't want people to do, don't hero worship Zoran. Make sure you hold him accountable. You know, things that did not happen with a lot of the members of the squad when they did the wrong thing. So just prepare yourself for him to, if he wins, to govern a little bit more moderately, especially if he added someone from Obama's team. And I say that because remember how Obama also ran on some of these populist issues. He was talking a good game when he was running for president. And the moment he got in there, things didn't work that way. So everyone should have health care went to Obamacare. It went from everyone should have health care to, oh, we're just going to do Obamacare. So let's just keep that in mind, ladies and gentlemen. But I feel sorry for everybody in New York because Jesus Christ, these choices. Aye. But Andrew Cuomo won't go away. Won't go away. Way. All right. We're going to move on to the next story here, ladies and gentlemen. Let's get to the comments first. Isabel said, Adams is horrible. His biggest accomplishment is having mandatory trash bins. I remember that. Irene said, Eric Adams also made a weird video where he criticized Mandani for having manicured nails. Aye. Thank you, Sparky. No matter how he works out, just Mandani saying he's against the genocide in Gaza makes it worthwhile to vote for him, since it helps make it more okay for others to openly express that view. And thank you for this one. Free Jelaine. Thank you for this one. You know they got nothing when they pull out that he's a communist card. There you go. And he could win. Like I said, like the numbers, if things stay as they are right now, according to that poll, he's going to win. So, all right, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to move on to this next story here. I got to show you something that I did not think I would ever show you on this show. So apparently Max Blumenthal caught this. Shout out to Max Blumenthal for catching this. Did you know that there were a segment of MAGA supporters that protested against Benjamin Netanyahu recently? Did you know that? Check this out. Check it out. Chickity, check it out. Max Blumenthal said, never seen this before. A self-identified MAGA supporter joined Palestine solidarity protesters outside the White House while Netanyahu met with evangelical leaders inside. You have to see it to believe it. And I think he's given the shout out here to Kara Kostranova, who apparently recorded this. Check this out.
I'm a Trump supporter, and I don't know what's going on, but he needs to stop this. He needs to see. You got to stop looking away. You got to look at what's going on in the Middle East. My message is to all Americans that we can't watch people killing babies, women, children, civilians, and just let it go. We have to get up and speak and say, not in our name, not in anyone's name. Plenty of Jewish people have said, not in our name. It isn't anti-Semitic to say you don't want to kill babies. You don't want to kill mothers. You don't want to kill fathers who have nothing to do with any of this political bullshit. The Trump supporters, get up, wake up, do some research, take a look at what's going on. Don't just believe the media. It's fed us with COVID. It's feeding us now. We've got to take a stand. We've got to stand up for true humanism. This is our humanity. We're losing our humanity. They are starving, killing, shooting babies. They're shooting mothers. The Israelis are starving babies, shooting mothers. They won't even let the formula in. Plenty of aid.
Let me pause here for a second. This is what I was saying about the pro-life movement, right? Because if you are pro-life, are you pro-life or pro-birth? Because I see people say that they're pro-life, but then after that child gets here, it's just like, that child's just on their own. Oh, we should give the kids free breakfast and da-da-da. No. That child is on their own. Black Panther started the free breakfast program. That's where the schools got it from. They ain't come up. You think they came up with that on their own? So if you are pro-life, then you should care about all kids, regardless of race, ethnicity, gender, etc. You should want all of those children to live if you're pro-life. Now, if you're pro-birth, maybe you don't care about their lives and you just want people to not, have an abortion. You want people to continue to have babies, but then you don't want them to take care of those babies. You don't want people to take care of them. Now, he was there meeting with evangelicals. And this is why I asked this question before. What about the evangelical Christians who are rah-rah pro-life? Let's continue.
Mothers. The Israelis are starving babies, shooting mothers. They won't even let the formula in. Plenty of aid is going to Gaza, but it won't get through. The Palestinians are a mix of all races of people. They were there from the beginning as well. They deserve a voice. They deserve to be heard. They are not Hamas. They shouldn't be shooting babies. Baby is not Hamas.
Where are we right now? What is going on?
We are standing here before the Christians. The evangelist Christians are coming in to meet with Bibi, and we're trying to say, if you're a Christian, is this what Jesus would do?
No. She's right. This is why I've been saying to people, if anything, you guys and you're going to see someone who actually did this recently. People need to start appealing to those who say that they are pro-life. Because like I said, if you're pro-life, you should be against the murder of these children in Gaza, all over the world. You should be against the murder. You should be against the murder, the mistreatment of the children in the Congo, the abuse of children in the Congo so that you can have rechargeable batteries for your smartphone. That part. You should be against that. You should be against starving children, killing children when they're just coming to collect aid and food if you're pro-life. And that's the message that people need to carry out there. If you say that you care about the life of a child, that does not mean that you care about, it should not mean that you only care about the life of certain children. because that's not pro-life. And for those who, and again, like I said, I grew up in the church. I'm very familiar with the Bible. I went to Bible study on Wednesdays. You had choir rehearsal on Saturdays when I was part of the choir. That didn't last long. But when I had choir rehearsal on Saturdays, Bible study on Wednesdays, church on Sunday. And I'm just going to say this. If you really read the Bible for what it is, a lot of the things that people are pushing against in our country, according to the Bible, Jesus was cool with. The treatment of people, what is happening to the children, starving people. You're just killing all these kids. It's absolutely insane. And there's no way, I don't even want to hear it. There's no way, no Christian can come up here, sit up and tell me, oh, well, you know, that's just the hand that they were dealt. No, it's not the hand that they were dealt. The U.S. government is doing it. Israel is doing it. And the way that I've just seen some people try to justify this, well, it's biblical. No, it's not. We will say it again on this show because pastors keep spreading this nonsense. The Israel that is mentioned in the Bible is not the physical modern day Israel of today. When Israel is discussed in the Bible, it is not a place. You can tell the people who actually read the Bible and who are just repeating what their pastors told them. That's the thing. So people got to check some of these pastors too, because some of these pastors have been spreading nonsense. Let's continue.
No, this is not right. And we should be able to stand up and say it without fear. In 36 of our countries, you're not even allowed to say this kind of stuff. I could get in trouble, which is ridiculous. We should be able to speak about killing innocent civilians. Otherwise, we're no better than, you know.
So see, I don't think a lot of people notice that was independent media. Corporate media isn't covering that. Corporate media isn't covering that. Now, Dave Smith said this recently, and I want to share this. He was also at that Turning Point summit. And Dave, I don't agree with Dave Smith on everything either, because he go back and forth sometimes with some things. You know, he'd be like, Trump was not anti-war in 2016, but then he was like, he was voting for Trump this time around, and he was going to be anti-war. Now he all over. I don't know. But I think this point that he said here is incredibly important. So at the Turning Point USA Student Action Summit, libertarian comedian Dave Smith challenged the pro-life's right support for Israel's genocide in Gaza. So again, I think this message needs to come from people like Dave Smith who supported Donald Trump. I think they need to hear it from their own family. Their own family. Listen to this.
Yes, it was a horrible day and the world feels for those civilians. But at the same time, you have to know, if you're Israel, that the way that you respond to this is going to be how you're characterized in the international community. And so you would at least make some effort to not kill so many civilians. You can't, dude. Smotrich, the finance minister, was bragging for 3 months that not 1 ounce of grain would get into Gaza. Well, Hamas has all the food. They're firing rockets from Hamas has all the schools. Dude, you interrupt every 2 seconds, dude. Please, Hamas has all the food they need. This is a war on the civilian population. And then, as is reported, admitted by IDF. By the way, this is admitted by the Israeli government. You can say whatever you want about Haaretz. They denied that they gave the orders, but they admitted that it was the IDF who was shooting at those people. Then after you deny the civilians food for 3 months, then you start shooting at the people who are desperately trying to get some food for them and their kids. So no, listen, I'm sorry. And I guess I am partly rejecting the premise of your question. But let me just say it like this, Charlie. If you're pro-life, and you say, "I," a stupid argument. You should not buy this. Guys, let Dave finish his sentence. Shut up, bro. It's not. Hamas it's a stop, not pro-life here.
So this guy here to the right is a propagandist. Charlie Kirk is also a propagandist. By the way, I noticed that when Donald Trump said no Epstein files and nothing to see here, folks, Charlie Kirk diverted right back to DEI. diverted right back to DEI. Okay, let's start talking about the culture war again, ladies and gentlemen. Paid propagandists. There's a reason why I'm independent. There's a reason why I remain independent, why I don't take sponsorships. And people give offers and I don't take them. There's a reason. People don't contact you and offer you something just because they want to be nice. When people come to you and they offer you sponsorships and they say, we'll pay you this if you do this, we'll pay you that if you do that, they want something in return. That's how it works. And that's how they get people like Charlie. That's how they get a lot of them. You keep pushing these talking points. I will sponsor you if you promote said candidate. We'll sponsor you if you promote this initiative. I've seen it all. Seen it all.
It's a stupid argument. You haven't heard the argument. What's the argument that's stupid?
Dave, you're not pro-life.
Guys, no, what's the argument?
It's Hamas that is not pro-life.
What's the argument? You just called stupid. Dave. What's the argument?
This is what.
Hold on one second, Charlie.
I know people don't
what's
like
the argument that you?
Not enjoyable to watch. Okay?
What's the argument that you called
Why
stupid?
don't you finish it, Josh?
Because he doesn't even know what it is. He interrupted me before I even said it. What? Okay, here's the argument. If you're pro-life, it's not incumbent on you to have a plan for what the mother ought to do with the baby. Like, you don't have to have a plan for daycare and college funds and all that. You just say, hey, I think this option should be off the table. I don't think you have the right to murder the baby while it's inside of you. Likewise, I'm not saying I have to have the perfect plan. If we had more time, I could expound on what I think they should have done. But how about don't deny 1 ounce of grain for 3 months and then shoot at the poor people who are trying to get food?
Josh,
how about you take that option off the table? Is that argument stupid, Josh?
Dave?
I would go a step further than that, right? But he has a point. Like, if you're pro-life, why are you supporting starving people and children, starving people, people trying to come and get food and being slaughtered? Right? But I would take that a step further. First of all, Israel should not have control over what food and aid goes into Gaza in the first damn place. You see, we got to cut the chain altogether. We can't just say, okay, we will remove this part of the chain, but the rest of the chain remains intact. No, you have to cut the entire chain. As long as Gaza is dependent on Israel to get aid, food, etc., Israel is still in control and they're still oppressing those people. So I would always take that a step further and to say Israel should not be controlling them or anything at all. Now, keep in mind who he's talking to. So he is talking to, a lot of Trump supporters. So he probably framed it in a way as, let me just explain the pro-life part there, right? And now with the propagandist dude on the right and Charlie and all of them, what their job is to do is to convince you that they don't deserve to have the food and the aid because they're all Hamas, or this all started on October 7th. Everybody has their talking points, and a lot of these people are paid off. A lot of these people have taken some money. And let me tell you, we'll see if I can ever get them on the show. There have been others. Yes, there have been others that were approached, were offered the same type of energy Charlie Kirk has and Candace had when she was a part of the Daily Wire. There have been others that have been sought out to sell out, but they decided not to. You never hear about them anymore. And people wonder why. And you have to ask yourself, what type of humanity do they have as a person? If they have these talking points, how do they go home and live with themselves? People start taking that kind of money. They get used to a certain lifestyle. They get used to being flown out to hotels and not having to pay for the flight or the hotel, fancy hotels, nice houses. They get used to the money and the lifestyle that they're living, and they don't want to give that up. And that means that at that point, they're really no better than CNN, Fox News, and MSNBC. They're no better than those pundits on those corporate channels either, because they also chose to sell out. They decided the money is more important. This is why I push back on all the people who got fired. I got fired from CNN. I got fired from Fox. I got fired from da-da-da. Now all of a sudden they want to be truth tellers. But when it really counted and it really mattered for you to do so, and you had millions of people watching you, you wouldn't do it. And a lot of the brainwashing in this country, it comes from corporate media. And that's why you see me push back on corporate media so much. They are the ones who made you believe that we should go to war with Iraq. They're the ones who told you that Muslim people were scary and dangerous after 9/11 and not to trust them. They're the ones who tell you, oh God, fear the democratic socialists who have no fucking power. But they never tell you to fear the billionaires who control it all. That's why I say what I say about corporate media. They're the ones brainwashing people. Now, luckily, independent media has made a breakthrough in the crack. But sadly, some of the people who are quote unquote independent media on YouTube have also decided to take a bag. And when you start buying $1 million homes and you become a multi-millionaire and you start having a maid and all this type of stuff, they don't want to let that lifestyle go either. And I'm greatly concerned that some of these people that were independent have also been captured by the money. And that's a damn shame. The point is, if you are pro-life, as you say that you are, you should be against these kids starving. You should be against these kids being killed if you are pro-life. That's a fact. And so maybe they need to hear it from someone like Dave Smith. Since he voted for Trump, maybe they need to hear it from him. That's just kind of how I look at it. These are the games, that people play. Let's go to some of the comments here, ladies and gentlemen. Shout out to Leroy. Leroy's been with me since back in the day. He's been a member for 46 months. I guess when people like AOC and Mandani say they're progressive, they mean the insurance company. You pay them and get nothing for it. Progressive insurance company. Remember Flo? Stephanie says, like when Ben Shapiro's listeners came at him for hating on Luigi. Yeah, that was backfire. Thank you guys. Shelly said, Sabby, your blouse is beautiful. Thank you. I don't know. I'm Timu, what's up? Thank you, Sparky. I'm in the Bible Belt. The individual Christians in the congregations went along with Israel at first, but are now disgusted. Only their leadership cashing checks from Israel are still playing along. Ooh, interesting. And thank you for this one. The BS Ted Cruz told Tucker he learned in Sunday school wasn't from the King James Bible. It is from the Scofield Bible or a derivative. Bibles purposefully mistranslated to promote Zionism. That's right. I'm telling you. Do your own research. Even when it comes to the Bible, too, do your own research. Skylar said Jesus would have been ethnically Arab Palestinian. How can so-called Christians be okay with slaughtering Jesus's people, but forget where Bethlehem, Jerusalem, etc. are? Those are literally his kinfolk. I see someone went to church. Someone's been studying. Skylar's been studying. And Sunny, did you read the article in Haaretz called It's a Killing Field? Exposing, the soldiers who are following orders to fire shots at the civilians. Nico House came onto the show. I think that was about 2 weeks ago. He came onto the show and we covered that. Yep. Told you guys. And thank you, Roger. Next time, Point would be sponsoring to donating mutual. I don't know what that means. I don't know what you really mean there, Roger. Next time, point would be sponsors to donating mutual. I don't know. Thank you, Resurrect. Sabby, they are going to offer you the bag too. I've had offers, but I turned them down. Most I don't even respond to. But when I used to respond, I would say nope. But I've had offers that have been thrown my way. We have one more story. Got to end with one that I think you might laugh about. There's some comedy with this next story. There's comedy. Now, first and foremost, I want to say this. When you hear this story, you're probably going to say to yourself, how on earth would this actually happen? But it does happen. And it doesn't just happen in New York. It doesn't just happen in Queens. I've seen it happen here in Boston. What is the possibility that someone would get into a brawl over a parking spot? But it happens. And the craziest story this week, ladies and gentlemen, a young woman, college student, apparently got into a brawl over a parking spot, and she was attacked by 3 people. They were all part of the same family. Let's get into this story, ladies and gents.
The argument over a parking spot in Queens turns violent. A resident in the Ridgewood neighborhood says one of her neighbors used a garbage can to try and save a parking spot on the street.
And when she couldn't find anywhere else to park and tried to move it, words were exchanged and fists started flying. And residents
I'm sorry, the way they cover this is kind of funny. Words were exchanged and fists started flying. It's kind of funny. There are 3 people fighting this woman. There are 3 on 1. Everybody see? Let me see if I can bring it back here so you can see it. 1, 2, 3. And then someone's just chilling on the steps. 3 against 1.
To park and tried to move it. Words were exchanged and fists started flying. And residents who live in the area say that this brawl was years in the making.
Eyewitness News reporter Crystal Cranmore spoke exclusively with the woman who was attacked.
I couldn't tell that I was getting hit in the head and everything. I was just trying to.
That's a man. So you see a man attacking a woman. Again, over a parking spot.
Defend myself at the time.
Cell phone video shows 21-year-old Jada McPherson taking blow after blow.
It just all happened so fast. Her agenda was to pull my head. That was their main agenda. Like it's 3 against 1, and I'm like 130 pounds barely.
The fight started over an issue New Yorkers know all too well.
Parking is like hard to find.
McPherson said she was returning home from work when she was trying to park her car on Putnam Avenue near Onderdonk Avenue in Ridgewood, Queens, Monday evening.
The guy, he came and put a garbage can behind my car to prevent me to park. I circled the block 3-4 times. I can't.
Pause. Let me explain the trash can thing, because some people who may not live in up the Northeast in these cities may not understand. So what happens here in Boston too? Now, technically by law, if you're not paying for a parking spot on the street, or if there are no parking spots that you can actually buy or purchase on the street, you do not own that spot. That's the law. However, there's such things called neighborhood code. And even here in Boston, Cambridge, and Somerville, this happens during the winter. Now, I was surprised this happened during the summer. We'll get to what this is really all about at the end. But in Boston during the winter, especially when it snows, when people shovel out their spots, they would put something in place to hold that spot via trash can, right? The trash can, some people use a chair, and you guys think it's a joke. It's not a joke. When I first moved to Boston years ago, I was like, did someone just put a trash can in that spot to hold that parking spot? Is that a chair? Is that a table on the street in a parking spot to hold that spot? Let me tell you something. Move that furniture if you want to. And don't be surprised if when you come back, someone has knifed your tires, or if they catch you doing it, they beat your ass. So this was new to me when I first moved here. I was like, dude, you don't own the street. But it's a city code thing. It's kind of neighborhood code that since they shoveled out their spot, it belongs to them. And if you break code, people might throw some hands. Now, again, is that the law? No, it's not. You don't own it. You don't own it. So some people saw this story and they were like, oh my God, people got into a fight over a parking space. It happens. And for those of us, if you've lived down south like I have, where parking spaces are more plentiful and you don't have to deal with this, you may not see this probably, but it happens up here and people get vicious with it. Let's continue.
Came back and I'm like, it's been like 30 minutes and you're still here.
A verbal altercation with the man and two other women, police identified as Andrea Dumitru and Sabrina Starman.
I'm not gonna lie, I called her an immigrant, but she called me a slave and she called me a monkey.
Of course, it had to resort to that. And then in come the racial names, right? So you see this? She says she was called a slave. The other party says that they were called a immigrant. They calling people monkeys, all this kind of stuff, all over a parking spot.
Quickly turned violent. Medics treated McPherson at the scene and arrested Dumitru and Starman. Neighbors say they are family.
Again, is that a man? Right here. I believe that is a guy who is hitting her, who hit her in her back. Let me know if I'm wrong. I thought that was the guy who hit her in her back.
And there have been issues with them holding parking spots for years.
It's not worth fighting, but across the street with the garbage cans there.
Oh, okay. Thank you. Red said the person that is hitting her is transgender. Okay, sorry. Thank you for that.
Trying to hold the spot. He sits there monitoring it, and that's what happened.
I just heard, I heard voices and looked out the window and saw arms flying. If you're coming home at rush hour, it can take like up to an hour to find parking.
McPherson says she's ready to put this tragedy behind her.
Do you guys see this? So first of all, again, we do not promote violence on this show. 2, why is it 3 against 1? Why? Woo, man.
And has even found a lesson through it all.
It gives you a different look at life. Like, you understand what I'm saying? Like, certain things is just, you just have to like let it be.
Police have charged 45-year-old Andrea Dumitru and 21-year-old Sabrina Starman with assault. Authorities are still looking for a third individual. In Ridgewood, Queens, Crystal Cranmore, Channel 7.
Okay, people are saying it's 2 men and 1 woman on that girl. I thought it was a guy, but I don't know. The thing is, regardless, it was 3 against 1. I want to go into this one here because the residents in that neighborhood also had something to say.
That fight started after a woman tried to park in a spot that was blocked off by trash cans, and it ended in 2 arrests.
All right, Fox 5's Richard G. Kovis is in Ridgewood, Queens tonight with more on what happened.
Even in the middle of the day during a busy work week, there are no parking spots to be had along this stretch of Putnam Avenue in Ridgewood, Queens. And this week, the fight to nab one of those coveted spots got just as hot as the summer heat.
I've literally burnt a quarter of a tank driving around this neighborhood at night. Comes 5 o'clock, forget about parking here.
Cell phone video.
You know why? Let me tell you something to what this guy just said. He said, forget about parking here after a certain time. What happens, and I've dealt with it living in the city myself, people park their cars and a lot of times they keep them there and it doesn't move. I've dealt with this. Whereas like, especially when we lived over in, actually Cambridge wasn't too bad. Boston was. Especially like in Boston, like if you did not return home by a certain time looking for a parking spot, forget it. Forget it. There have been times where people had to park like 2, 3, 4, 5 blocks over because, again, a lot of times people will park and they won't move that car for days. So.
Cell phone video from Monday night shows a woman standing in the middle of the street asking if she could park her car into a spot that appears to be blocked off by garbage cans.
You drive by and see trash cans
in the street. That's not right. It's not fair.
Police tell us that a 21-year-old woman got into a heated argument over a parking spot outside 18-28 Putnam Avenue with several people standing on the sidewalk. In the video, less than 30 seconds, the person in the white T-shirt lunges at the woman.
So the reason why I wanted you to see this is because the woman who was trying to park in the parking spot did not throw the first blow, as you can tell. So she was attacked, and she's asking if she could park there. Now, yeah, they called each other names and went back and forth and all that kind of stuff. But the reality is she didn't. It's not like she said, "Can I park here?" No, bow. It's not like she did that. That's why the video matters.
Another person pounces, and soon it's 3 against 1. Cops say the victim was punched multiple times in the face and body, causing her substantial pain. Video shows that woman dressed in all black on the ground, getting slapped, all because neighbors say this mother-daughter duo was saving a parking spot. Like one man describes it, it's every person for themselves in this part of town, at least when it comes to getting a spot.
Yeah, it's hooray for me and screw you. That's just the way it is.
After a few minutes, police arrive and arrest the mom, and witnesses say the woman who was fighting for the spot eventually won it, but had to endure a physical fight that neighbors say is not the solution.
Yeah, I thought they would have better, sense than that.
Police tell us that they arrested 2 women that night and charged both with assault. Meanwhile, the victim was treated at the scene by EMS and is still recovering. There's a local advocacy group, though, that says there's a bigger problem here, and it's this parking issue that's been plaguing this neighborhood for more than a decade, and they say something needs to be done about it. We're in Ridgewood, Queens. Richard Giacobas, Fox 5 News.
But nothing's going to be done about it, and let me tell you why. It's a supply and demand issue, right? So again, like I said, we have the same issue here in Boston. The demand is high, but the supply is low. There are very few spots, but there's a higher demand. Now, some people are asking, it's New York City. Why not just take public transportation? First of all, not everywhere in New York City is easily accessible by public transportation. That is something to keep in mind. Yes, they do have a subway system that for the most part is 24 hours, but depending on where you are in certain boroughs, that can change. So like, for example, there are certain parts of Queens that are not easily accessible by public transportation. I know this because I used to live in Brooklyn. I remember one time I had to go from Brooklyn to Queens. Jesus Christ, don't do that if you don't have a car. Don't do that if you don't have a car. Just don't do it. It's not easily accessible to get to, right? I think Astoria, some parts of Astoria has like, a subway stop that you can access. But again, for the most part with Queens is big. So that's why if you go to Queens, you'll see more cars than in like Manhattan, etc. So, I mean, it depends on where you are. So let's talk about the supply and demand. If you know, for one, that there aren't many parking spots, what's going to happen is it's going to become like a winner take all system, or like brutal. I don't know, kind of like Hunger Games and shit. So it's like people are hunting for a spot, and once they get one, you better not think about trying to take that spot from them. Now, I believe putting the trash can in the street to protect the spot, again, like I told you guys, is like a neighborhood code thing here in the winter when there is snow and you shoveled the car out of that spot. This is during the summer. There is no snow. You didn't shovel the car out of that spot. That was an open spot. She had every right to ask if she could park there. The point that I'm trying to make is this. This has been happening over a lot of these cities, particularly on the East Coast, Northeast here. They've been trying to remove more and more parking spots. They've been doing this in Boston. They've been doing it in Cambridge. I sat right there on Broadway in Cambridge while I watched them remove parking spots so they can insert a bike lane. They've been doing this for the past couple of years. So you are going to see less and less parking spots. And then it gets to the point where certain areas that you go to, if you want to park there, you're going to have to pay to park in the parking garage. You see what I'm saying? This is capitalism on steroids. This is what I was talking about. I've watched them for years. New York, Boston, Philly, this coming to you soon, if not yet. DC, they keep removing these parking spaces because they want to make these cities walkable and bikeable. That's why you keep seeing all these bike lanes pop up everywhere. That's not just for fun. They want less cars on the roads, more bikes, and more feet hitting the pavement. And that's what's happening, folks. So if you think the parking problem is an issue right now in Queens, it's going to get worse. But there's something else that goes along with the story. Apparently, the neighborhood is ready to stand up and fight for her. They are ready. Yes, they are ready. Let me see if I can pull up the picture here. Give me a second. They are ready to fight for her. And I want you guys to see this because they came back to that neighborhood. Not Jada. I believe her name was Jada McPherson. People came back to that neighborhood and decided to stand up to the family that jumped her in the middle of the street. Listen to this.
We are talking directly to you cowards who jumped one 21-year-old woman. We here now. We here now. We here to represent our people, and we here to let you know that if you call a black person a monkey and assault them, we will bring the entire zoo to your front door. Because this is what we are not having. We are not having. I don't care what neighborhood it is. I don't care where you from. You will not attack a black woman. You will not allow 3 people to attack a black woman. All black people will show up. This ain't 1950s. This ain't Jim Crow. This is 2025, and you will not attack black people and get away with it. Now the numbers is even. Come downstairs instead of recording us on your camera. Come downstairs. When people show up, to address the issue, you want to apologize. But what I saw the other day was
So, see, they jumped that girl, but obviously they're not going to stand up to this guy. And I'll show you what they did instead. They decided to contact the police. So they called the cops. Let me go ahead and bring this in here. When they showed up, they called the cops, right? So they picked on her 3 against 1, but they called the cops when the community showed up. People came up to stand up for her.
don't listen. Y'all don't want this. This part right here that y'all watching, this is called no justice, no fucking peace. It ain't gotta be against the cops. We come across anybody. There's no justice, no peace. No justice, no peace. We're not getting beat up by them cops. We're not gonna get beat up by y'all. We're not gonna get beat up by y'all. Don't come over here. Don't see your sister. Hey, yo. Everybody with us. Do not explain nothing to the police. Do not talk to us. Exactly why we out. Do not talk to us. You don't have to answer any questions.
A black woman with a building on this street. They already know. With a assaulted by a family of 3.
Yeah, you see, you can't. Let me tell you. Don't get it twisted. You don't want to piss off the wrong person in New York because let me tell you, the whole community showed up, right? Now the mother and the daughter are apologizing. Check this out, or saying something, respond, excuse me. I don't know if it's apologize. Mother and daughter respond to attacking black woman in Queens over a parking spot. So here we go. Here's the mother and the daughter, but there were 3 people who attacked her. Everybody, you guys saw the video. There were 3 people, but the mother and the daughter coming forward. And it says here, last week, a young black woman named Jada McPherson was the victim of violence and racial abuse, allegedly from neighbors Andrea Dumitru and her daughter, Sabrina Starman. Not this Sabrina. And it goes on to say here, I just want to show you what they said. Here we go. Within the first 3 minutes of the video, Dimitru is interrupted by a phone call and says, there's strangers online calling me and harassing me. I have hundreds of calls, death threatening me, telling me how they're going to kill us. I fear for my life. I haven't been sleeping since I got out of jail. So they're saying that they're getting threatened. Dimitru then claims that McPherson did not attempt to communicate with her. Dimitru states that when she came out of her house to ask what the issue was, McPherson kept repeating, "Shut up, B." She did not even give me the opportunity to say, "Take the parking." She kept degrading me, calling me white trash. Dimitru also claims that this went on for 45 minutes before the filmed fight took place and states that they were waiting for the police. Speaking about the violence, Dimitru says that she regrets it and that it wasn't the right thing to do. I regret that it was very wrong of me to do. It wasn't right. I regret it. She chose the violence. She provoked the situation. But you guys hit her first. I mean, am I imagining things here, ladies and gentlemen? Am I imagining this? It goes on to say, not only with us, but strangers that were trying to help out the situation before me and her, Dimitru, even got to that point, to that location. Starman also adds that she doesn't condone violence, but I'm human. I'm not perfect. I'm not a robot. I'm not AI. I want to say that I apologize for approaching the way I did after being provoked. It's not the answer or solution to stop a situation, but people like me, okay, Starman is a transgender woman, have fought so much in this country, on this world. I've dealt with so much trauma in the past for being who I am as a person. Okay, and there are many people who have dealt with trauma, but you guys threw the first blow. The video doesn't show you that Jada coming after them physically. They came after her, and it was 3 against 1. So there are many people. Do we know what type of traumas that Jada may have suffered? No, you can't use that here. You guys threw the first punch. And they got mad. I guess they're scared now because people are threatening them. And then also the community stood up for Jada and went right back to that spot and said, no, you guys are not going to do that. First of all, shout out to the people who came to stand up for her and said, no, you are not going to attack that woman. Shout out to them. Because it don't always work that way. It doesn't always work that way. Sometimes if you get attacked, people beat you up or whatever, sometimes you are on your own. So shout out to that. I'm telling you guys, it's crazy things. And I saw people talking about the story online and they were like, why would people fight over a parking spot? And I'm like, I've seen it happen. It happens. I've seen it happen. Crazy times, ladies and gentlemen. Crazy times. Let's go to some of the comments here in the chat. Thank you, Sparky. Got to be careful about Bibles written in modern English, ostensibly because they're easier to read. Many, if not all of them, come from the Scotsfield Bible, so promote Zionism. And thank you for this one. Maybe the King James Bible has some questionable translations. I don't know. But they weren't done on purpose to promote Zionism. Thank you for the super chat. Blueser says to men. Thank you, Sparky. Maybe it applies to other modern translations of the Bible in other languages. Maybe. Thank you, John. It's important not to frame this as a fight or a brawl. This would not be framed this way if she were white. Black women being framed as contenders when attacked by a man is underhandedly racist. I have shown videos on this channel of white people getting attacked and also called it a fight or a brawl. I don't know if you're new here, but thank you. Go to N. I live in New York and this is real and normal. People always fight over a parking spot, even get shot. Yeah, I mean, you never know, man. You gotta be careful. Benny says the whole parking spot situation seems like an introduction to the 15-minute cities in the United States. Yep. The smart cities. Thank you. Where's the love? F the apology. Bring that same energy. Thank you, Kevin. Capitalism caused our cities to be planned around cars, less on public transportation, 15-minute cities now. There you go. That's why we don't have high-speed rail. Thank you, Gene. XL Conserve. I don't know what this means, honey. Excision Church equals sermon against Israel. MTG dist. I don't know, Gene, but thank you. Thank you, Skylar. Most Bibles today, including the King James Bible, have translation issues, and some of them were on purpose. Interesting. Interesting. We have a poll. Let's get to that poll. We'll see what people think here. Will Putin listen to Trump's sanctions threat and end the war? Okay. 2% said yes. 88% said hell no. 3% said he might. And 7% said I'm not sure. That is 1,257 votes. Thank you guys so much. Okay. That is pretty much it for me tonight, guys. That is it. I will be live again Thursday. Call in will be Thursday evening. We'll be bringing that back. Last week I couldn't, and the week before because I was filming, but I'm not filming this Friday. So we will have call in Thursday night. So lots to discuss. I know lots to discuss. Write down, make a note of whatever you want to discuss on call in, because I know it's been a minute, but we will resume call in Thursday night after the show. All right, guys, that is all for me. I hope you guys have a good night and keep up the fight.